Welcome to fantasy fanfiction. Comprehension is against the heavens. The end of the law turns into a real dragon, shocking the world. Chapter 31. The tiger and leopard thunder sound comes from Shuzonggung, and his name as the Thunder Hand is more or less related to the secret technique of the tiger and leopard thunder sound. The so-called Thunder Hand refers to his fierce punches, which are accompanied by the buzzing sound of wind and thunder. The big toad energy comes from Li Wanshan. This secret technique is even slightly better than tiger-leopard thunder sound. After it is mastered, the internal organs will be full of power, and there will be plenty of energy during swallowing and exhalation. This makes Li Wanshan's iron python legs so domineering, and his strength is even among the masters of the Dragon Kingdom. Be at the forefront. Su Zhan recalled the two secret techniques with excitement and enlightenment in his eyes. So that's what happened. Sometimes, the role of a stepping stone is so important. With direction and guidance, can save too much time. Su Zhan's feeling was particularly obvious at this time, and inspiration was constantly rising in his mind. If you want to speed up the cultivation of dark energy, and eventually spread it throughout the human body, and reach a state where the energy is everywhere, and even a feather cannot be added, a fly cannot fall, the key lies in one word, qi. This energy is contained in the flesh and blood, and it is acquired energy. Using qi to guide dark energy, it can spread towards the human body dozens of times easier than usual. Not only that, this acquired qi is not only the key to breaking through the master of Huajin, but also involves the realm after Huajin, which is the practice of Danjin. When I think of Danjin, Su Zhan felt excited for the first time. Just verified it multiple times. The two people's statements about Dan Jin are very consistent. Dan Jin, also known as Bao Dan, is called Heavenly Man in the martial arts world. If you want to advance to this level, you need to unite your essence, energy, spirit, and energy into one, thus integrating the acquired energy and the whole body's strength into one. Every move has great power, and you can even tear apart a tank with your hands. But this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that when the Dan Jin goes up, the Qi of Heaven will connect with the Qi of Heaven and Earth, thus becoming a true existence like a land immortal, which is called Gang Jin. Unfortunately, according to the two people, the world changed greatly 1,000 years ago. The so-called Qi of Heaven and Earth has become thinner and thinner. In modern times, it is almost invisible. It is extremely difficult to cultivate alchemy strength with such an external environment. Dan Jin is almost at the top of the martial arts world. As for Gang Jin, I have never seen him even with the status of the two of them. It is even possible that there is no one of this level now. The way forward seems to be cut off. But Su Zhan was not discouraged at all. Because he has unprecedented understanding, he can do what others cannot. Previously, he once thought about how to embark on the path of transforming into a true dragon, and even imitated the novels he had read in his previous life to sense the aura of heaven and earth and swallow the moonlight, but it had no effect at all. Now he knows. It's just because I didn't have access to the law before. It turns out that it's because my energy haven't reached the standard yet, so I can't sense it. If I wait until I advance to Danjin, I can still sense the existence of the energy of heaven and earth, no matter how thin it is. As long as you can sense it, there is a way. In the age of ending Dharma, their way forward is cut off, but with my heaven-defying understanding, I may not be able to find an unprecedented path. Su Zhan felt unprecedented excitement in his heart. This is a longing for the way forward. Dan Jin, as long as he reaches Dan Jin, he can truly start on the path of transforming into a true dragon, and hopefully become a legendary great demon. Wushu was originally just a training technique that I used to transition. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be the key to my transcendence. Su Zhan couldn't help but feel a little emotional. But according to these two people, national martial arts is also a product of the past 200 years. It should be the final fire left by human genius after knowing that the thinness of the energy of heaven and earth cannot be reversed. From the path of promotion, we can know that if we set foot on Gang Jin, we may be able to continue on a more advanced path of cultivation. If I have the opportunity in the future, I will collect more unique books from the ancient times of mankind. This will definitely be of great help to me in creating the method of transforming into a true dragon. He silently considered his next plan. The excitement in my heart gradually calmed down. You have to eat the food one bite at a time. That's the long-term goal. At the moment, let's talk about promoting Wajan first. The two secret arts are both adapted to the human body. He needs to learn from them and create a secret technique that snakes can practice. Suzan put away his distracting thoughts. Continue to comprehend the two secret techniques. The tiger and leopard thunder sound vibrates the human spine in waves to a total of 206 bones throughout the body, thus transmitting dark energy from the bones to the internal organs and to every corner of the human body. Because there is a dull sound when practicing, it is called tiger-leopard thunder sound. This secret technique is indeed brilliant, but the big toe chi is even better and the effect is even better. This secret technique is to imitate the exhalation of a toad to guide a breath of acquired energy from the body, and use the energy to guide the dark energy, so that it can spread all over the body. I need to combine these two secret techniques to create a suitable and more efficient secret technique. At this moment, Suzan has inspiration constantly rising in his mind. The tiger-leopard thunder sound and the great toad chi are the work of generations of peerless geniuses in mankind, but there is no secret in front of his heaven-defying understanding. The principles of the secret art were constantly being unraveled in his mind. He borrowed the bone distribution of the human body and the movement of the human body's breath into his python body. Inside the cave, there was a vague buzzing sound, which was the sound of the python bones vibrating. The snake bone vibrating breathing method also contained the mystery of vibrations, and they were all combined by Suzan at this time. Suzan is completely immersed in the world of inspiration. I don't know how much time has passed. His closed pupils suddenly opened, filled with joy. Success, based on the two human secret arts of tiger-leopard thunder sound and big toad chi, you clearly understood the secrets of dark energy and acquired energy. You combined the snake bone vibration breathing method to create the snake-like secret technique of transforming dragon energy. Close black lens bracket, transform into a dragon. This is the secret technique Suzan tailor-made for himself. Vibrating the python bones with force will stimulate the acquired chi in the body. The chi will swim throughout the body like a real dragon, allowing Suzan to quickly spread the dark energy throughout the body. This dragon transformation power combines the advantages of two human secret arts. The effect is exaggerated and terrifying, which can save Suzan 100 times of time. And more, not an exaggeration. At this time, Suzan is already confident that he will be promoted to Wajan within 2 days. This is the power of dragon transformation. Suzan couldn't help but laugh in his heart. This creative method is actually wonderful. After successfully creating the secret technique of Hualongjian, Suzan couldn't wait to start practicing. For a moment, he felt extremely relaxed. With a speed increase of more than 100 times, he could completely feel that the dark energy on his python bones was spreading throughout his body at an alarming speed. Compared with before, it was like riding a rocket. In one word, cool. Suzan was immersed in the pleasure of practicing. He didn't stop practicing until he sensed that the two human masters had woken up from their coma. The two of them sensed the residual aura on Suzan's body and felt horrified in their hearts. That was clearly the deeper and deeper reveal of Jin. Unimaginable. In such a short period of time, the other party had completely mastered two profound and obscure secret techniques. This kind of talent is even better than the peerless geniuses among human beings. For a while, their minds were spinning rapidly, thinking about how to escape. They wanted to get the word back. They had a hunch. This giant python in front of us may become a huge threat to mankind in the future. It's just that they didn't show any of these thoughts. They didn't even dare to exchange glances, for fear of attracting Suzan's cruel methods. At this moment, I can only rely on the tacit understanding and trust of old friends for many years. Looking at Xu Zonggung and Li Wanshan, Suzan thought slightly in his heart. Decided to keep them for now. Just now I just asked about the knowledge about Chinese martial arts. He still needs to slowly ask for more information about the underground base in this world. After squeezing out the last bit of remaining value from the two of them, it would not be too late to kill them. Think so. Suzan flicked his python tail, swept some fruits he had prepared before in front of the two of them, and said coldly, "Eat, keep asking after you finish. That's all." Suzan maintained the rhythm of practice and questioning. While cultivating in Jin and quickly moving towards transformation Jin, he also used different tricks to extract more information about the world from the two of them, allowing him to have a better understanding of the structure of the world. Su Zan's life is very rhythmic. But at the same time, underground base. Some people are not living so comfortably. Xu Shiqing suddenly woke up from her sleep, sweating profusely. She dreamed that a giant python with a body length of 100 meters came towards her with its bloody mouth open. The mouth of the python seemed to be infinitely big, and even swallowed her and the entire building. All underground bases were swallowed up. The dream was so real that her heart was beating violently now. When she realized it was just a dream, she breathed a sigh of relief. Director, the stress test of the 490th batch of R-Series test products will be conducted today. Do you want to go there now? An assistant reminded. Xu Shiqing's attention was not focused on this at all. She asked very quickly, with a little bit of unnoticeable expectation and panic. Have my second uncle and Grandmaster Li come back? Not yet. At this time, it had been 2 or 3 days since the contact with the two was disconnected that day. If it goes well, the two Grandmasters should have met with the people who were responsible for them. How come there is no news yet? The panic in Xu Shiqing's heart became more and more intense. She thought of the giant python in her dream again, and couldn't help but feel the urge to suffocate. She spoke in a sharp voice and stared at the assistant. Where is the person who responded? No trace of them has been found yet. The responders have just arrived at the marked river area. Apart from finding some traces of battle, they did not find the two masters. Xu Shiqing became more and more manic. The ominous premonition in her heart became stronger and stronger. When she thought about the way the Black Emperor played with her that day, and the seemingly intentional or unintentional actions of destroying all electronic devices, the more she thought about it, the more something was wrong, and she couldn't help but have a thought that she didn't even dare to think about. No, it's impossible. My second uncle and Grandmaster Li are both well-known Grandmaster-level figures in the Dragon Kingdom. They can't be rivals if they joined forces with the Black Emperor. Is it because the Black Emperor was too cunning and escaped? Xu Shiqing's eyes suddenly lit up. Yes, that must be the case. Hey, Emperor is extremely cunning. He might not be able to escape due to the two masters, but my second uncle and the others will definitely chase him. Wait a little longer, wait patiently. Xu Shiqing comforted herself in this way, and her anxiety suddenly eased a lot. She said in a deep voice. Send another team to pick them up. If there is any news, contact the base as soon as possible. Yes, Supervisor. Watch the assistant leave. Xu Shiqing couldn't help but rub her eyebrows. She had to admit that she was confused. Ever since the Black Emperor showed more and more extraordinary powers, she seemed to have never had a smooth life. Pacing back and forth, the more she thought about it, the more frightened she became. I recall everything that happened during these days in my mind. From the riot of snakes in the base, Zhang Chong's death, to the massacre of Zhao Qinghei's team, and now the two masters have lost contact, everything seems to be weird. Wrong. I overlooked something. In just a short period of time, Black Emperor broke through from 2 meters to 10 meters. It is absolutely impossible for such potential to be stuck at the evolutionary limit of 10 meters. In other words, the Black Emperor is definitely hiding himself. Xu Shiqing's eyes suddenly widened, and she finally knew what was wrong. She couldn't help but gasp. Although I don't know what method the Black Emperor used to hide his size, I'm afraid the two Grandmasters may not be able to bring it back. At this moment, Xu Shiqing felt that the giant python was like a monster, sneering at her secretly, and for the first time, she even had the urge to kill it at all costs. Finally, she suppressed this impulse, still unwilling to destroy an unprecedented alien species like the Black Emperor. But she also knew that things were probably beyond her control. Xu Shiqing took a deep breath. Finally decided to report the situation of the Black Emperor. Even if his own credit will be shared, there is even a risk of exposing the base. The R-12903 underground base is not unique. In fact, there are several such bases in the dark areas of Dragon Kingdom, all located on the borders of deep mountains and old forests. However, the one supporting this was not the Dragon Kingdom, but the Sakura Kingdom. Naturally, it was placed in the Dragon Kingdom to use the resources and land of the Dragon Kingdom to conduct various biological experiments. At first, Xu Shiqing went to Sakura country to study in anger. Unexpectedly, she had a strong talent in the field of biology. From then on, she embarked on the road of cooperating with Sakura country in biological experiments. In order to prove her family's wrong decision, she also cooperated with Sakura country. No matter what. Various animal experiments are distributed in various bases, and Xu Shiqing is just the person in charge of one of them, specializing in snake research. The only purpose of the R12903 underground base is to research various mutant snake species. There is even a replica of Yamata no Orochi, the mythical beast from the Sakura myth. The reason is simple. Sakura country is eager to develop its own combat power. After being restricted in the military aspect, it wants to start from other aspects. So far, the research has been tepid, and only a few powerful evolutionary pythons have great strength. But this is nothing more than a drop in the bucket. Compared with modern thermal weapons, it will not have much impact at all. But the Black Emperor appears. Let her see hope. Seeing the powerful potential of mutants. If one could recreate such terrifying giant pythons, with tens of thousands of Grandmaster-level combat power, they would definitely be terrifying weapons on the battlefield. Originally, she wanted to take the credit alone, so as to improve her status, and use this to impress Xu in the future. Generally speaking, the underground base will not easily contact the Sakura Kingdom. After all, the people of the Dragon Kingdom are not fools. If the signal is intercepted, the underground base may be destroyed by the Dragon Kingdom. But now, the matter is no longer something she can solve. She could only capture the Black Emperor by asking for help from the military forces of Sakura country. Think so. Xu Shiqing finally made up her mind. She used the dedicated line and solemnly said, Xu Shiqing, the person in charge of the R12903 underground base, please contact General Watanabe. Please contact General Watanabe. After Xu Shiqing finished speaking, she waited quietly. Confidential dedicated lines like this usually go through multiple transfers and have their own unique transmission lines, otherwise it is extremely easy to leak secrets. General Watanabe, also known as Watanabe Hanchuan, is the general person in charge of many underground bases. This is a general with real power. He is an absolute high-level official in the entire Sakura Kingdom and holds a high position of authority. But, Xu Shiqing believed that if she could produce research results based on Black Emperor, surpassing General Watanabe would not be a big problem. Thinking silently, Xu Shiqing's eyes were slightly hollow. At this moment, a reply finally came from the other side, but to her disappointment, the voice was not Watanabe Hanchuan but an electronic voice. Hello, dear Miss Xu Shiqing, General Watanabe is conducting a confidential military operation. We expect to give you a reply in 2 days. You can forward the information first. Xu Shiqing frowned. When is a bad time to launch a military operation but now? She always felt suffocated in her heart, and everything was not going as she wanted. Take a deep breath and suppress the rage in your heart. Relevant information and requests have been forwarded. Please call General Watanabe back after the operation is completed. After packaging and transmitting all the information related to the Black Emperor, she relaxed a little. Just 2 days. There should be no surprises in such a short period of time. Xu Shiqing smiled in a daze, suddenly feeling that she was a little too nervous. Let's take a step back. Even the 2 Grandmasters are no match for the Black Emperor. Could it be that the Black Emperor will still come to the base? Not to mention, now that I just can't contact the 2 masters, it may not be what I imagined. Force me to go into deep sleep. Maybe my second uncle and the others will come back when I wake up. Xu Shiqing gave the order and lay down in the sleeping cabin. And just when Xu Shiqing contacted Watanabe Hanchuan, a military base in Dragon Kingdom. Military Intelligence Analysis Institute. A commissioner's excited voice sounded. Chief, we just intercepted a transmission signal, related to Sakura country. The man with the Chinese character face next to him was suddenly shocked. He was the top person in charge of the military base here, Guo Taohai, who was responsible for destroying all secret operations of other countries in the Dragon Kingdom. Is it related to the biological experiment discovered before? Guo Taohai asked in a deep voice. Report to the chief, it's very possible. However, this transmission signal blockade is very confidential. At present, we only know the general scope. It is along our country's coastal border, and the specific location is not known yet. The commissioner kept working his fingers, and disappointment gradually appeared on his face. Guo Taohai patted the commissioner on the shoulder and encouraged. Xiao Wang, work harder and try to decipher the specific location of this signal source, and then destroy it in one fell swoop. The fool Sakura country is conducting inhumane biological genetic experiments in our country. It's really fooled. There was suppressed anger in his eyes. He had previously directed an operation to destroy a biological testing base, and everything inside was simply shocking. It was an experimental base for apes. All kinds of grotesque apes were locked in cages, including many of the Dragon Kingdom's treasured and protected animals. What's even more horrifying is that there were even comparative experiments between apes and humans. It is precisely because of this. Dragon Kingdom pays special attention to it. After learning that Sakura country had several such research bases within its borders, they immediately increased their firepower and started searching. Now, finally, there was another harvest. The commissioner nodded repeatedly and said confidently, "Yes, Chief, I have marked this range. As long as this signal source appears again, I can lock his specific location." Guo Taohai laughed. "Very good. Notify me as soon as there is any news. Our soldiers are on standby at any time." "Yes, Chief." Quietly, Sakura Kingdom and Dragon Kingdom have begun to secretly fight. And all this, Suzan didn't know. Inside the cave, Suzan is undergoing her final transformation. In the past 2 days, he has worked hard to practice the secret technique of transforming dragon energy. Now the dark energy has almost spread all over his body, and there is only one last step left. By this time, he also fully understood why it was so difficult for him to advance to Wajan before. After all, the snake bone vibration breathing method is already an extremely efficient cultivation technique. The reason is simple. Suzan's heart is so strong. If you want to support such a huge body to move flexibly, and even to explode with terrifying strength and agility, you can imagine the requirements on the heart. To improve the energy of transformation, it is necessary to cleanse the heart of the dark energy and bring it to the same clean and unsullied state. Thanks to this, the human Wajan Grandmaster can even live to be 150 years old. There are pros and cons. My heart is very strong and training is difficult, but after success, the improvement will be equally obvious. If the heart is compared to an engine, then my engine is dozens of times stronger than a human's. In other words, if I advance to Wajan, I will definitely reach the most powerful Wajan realm ever. Even if I don't count the powerful strength of my body itself, I can crush other people in the same realm at will. Suzan was excited and looking forward to it. After so many days of busy work, it was finally time to succeed. Calm your mind. He began to focus on the practice of transforming dragon energy. Inside the cave, a terrifying giant python is circling. The python's bones vibrate, like the thunder of a tiger and leopard. The python swallows breath, and turns into a real dragon, constantly swimming up and down the python's body, implicating the acquired energy in the body, guiding Jin towards the center, away from the heart. Look from afar. This giant python is like a coiled dragon, powerful and domineering. The energy keeps pumping. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of the heart beating was like muffled thunder. There is no obstacle to this last step. It just comes naturally. As the huge heart is completely refined by the dark energy, the beating sound of the heart becomes more intense, demonstrating unparalleled vitality and vitality. The whole body was full of energy, which penetrated the whole body. The feeling of pleasure made Suzan couldn't help but raise his head to the sky and neigh. He felt extremely happy. At this moment, he just felt that his whole body was filled with extremely powerful power. His condition was better than ever, and his every move carried incomparable power. This is a transformation, no less than the growth of life size, or even beyond. Worked hard for so long. Turn your energy into a successful breakthrough. Now Suzan, if he were in the human world, could already be called a master. At this moment, Suzan could completely feel the abundant power in his body, and his heart was beating continuously, as if he had replaced an engine with 10 times more power. The vitality is extremely strong. The lifespan of ordinary snakes is far less than that of humans, but now Suzan feels that he can live for at least 100 years. This is an extremely incredible lifespan for a python, and it also gives Suzan more confidence. You can pursue the next path. Not only that, it has reached the state of transforming energy. His whole body can burst out with amazing power. This is true for even the most fatal weakness. Suzan couldn't help but let out a sigh of satisfaction. This feeling of growing power was really fascinating. Hua Jin has successfully broken through. If you want to unite your spirit, energy and spirit, it is not that easy to achieve Danjin. Now, it's time to deal with that annoying thing. A strong murderous intent rose in Suzan's eyes. Xu Shiqing sent troops to arrest him again and again, and he always remembered it in his heart. Before it was just to be on the safe side. Now that the two small goals have been achieved, not only is the body 21 meters long, but it has also broken through to the realm of strength. Suzan feels that he has enough strength to push everything. In this case, given his character, he would never endure it any longer. The strong murderous intent even made the temperature in the cave seem to drop a lot. 2 gasps made Suzan look over. It was Xu Zonggung and Li Wanshan who woke up again. Suzan's eyes were indifferent. I almost forgot about these 2 people. These few days. Keep asking. Suzan knew that he had indeed traveled to parallel time and space. The pattern of this world had not changed much from the previous life. At most, the great changes in the world mentioned by the 2 people 1,000 years ago were somewhat different from the previous life. Today's blue star. The beautiful country still dominates the world, while the dragon country is trying to catch up, but it has been dragged away by other countries. At most, some local changes are inconsistent with the previous life. He didn't pay too much attention. After traveling through time and becoming a snake, what he thought more about was his own detachment. As for other things, he had to stay back. Suzan also learned a lot of other information. For example, the training systems of various countries, the national martial arts of the Dragon Kingdom, the Bushido of the Sakura Kingdom, and the genetically modified warriors of the Beautiful Kingdom. We also learned a lot about the underground base. All in all, he has almost squeezed out all the important information the 2 of them knew. These 2 people, there is no use value anymore. Suzan's eyes became colder and colder, and he would not have any unnecessary pity. Feel the eyes full of murderous intent. Of course Xu Zonggung and Li Wanshan knew what this meant. Both of them shook their bodies and felt hairy in their hearts. Xu Zonggung smiled dryly and said, "Hey Emperor, I suddenly remembered that there was one omission that I didn't finish talking about the underground base's defense system yesterday." There is no emotion or anger in Suzan's voice. "Oh, tell me." His python body moved slowly, and his huge vertical pupils came closer, as if tens of thousands of years of ice had been condensed in them. Xu Zonggung lowered his head and said softly, "In addition to the high-voltage power grid mentioned yesterday, there is also..." His voice was long, and before he could say the next words, he suddenly exploded, and his fists were like thunder spears, piercing Suzan's left pupil. Almost at the same time, Li Wanshan also charged towards Suzan's right eye from the other side, with his legs like an iron python crossing the air, carrying a fierce wind. There was no communication between the 2 at all. It is entirely based on the tacit understanding and trust of many years of friendship. In the past few days, he has been silently accumulating strength, pretending to be seriously injured on the surface, but in fact he has been trying his best to recover the power of a shocking blow. At this time, their eyes were full of ferocity and murderous intent. They must seize this excellent opportunity, because this may be their last hope for a comeback. This terrifying giant python has no chance of winning if it doesn't attack its vital points. The 2 of them went all out, their hearts beating violently and making overwhelming sounds. This was a hit or miss. Seeing Suzan froze in place, seemingly unable to react at all. Xu Zonggung and Li Wanshan were both overjoyed. The comeback seems to be happening in an instant. However, sometimes the greater the hope, the more intense the despair. The 2 of them were almost touching Suzan's pupils, but just like this, the sudden joking in his pupils became particularly noticeable. Suzan naturally would not leave such a big flaw. He knew all their little moves. Just too lazy to pay attention to it. Quan should be able to verify his strength after being promoted to Wajan. Buzz. The buzzing sound of surging power was particularly noticeable, coming not from the two grandmasters, but from Suzan's pupils. Promote energy. Everywhere in his body bursts out with powerful energy, and his pupils are no exception. The two thought this was a weakness. But as everyone knows, this can also be a murder weapon. Boom. The dull sound echoed in the cave. The bodies of Xu Zonggung and Li Wanshan were knocked away with almost no resistance. The majestic force was 10 times or even dozens of times stronger than theirs. It was even more exaggerated than an adult beating a child. Just the burst of force from his pupils was enough to crush two human masters. Xu Zonggung and Li Wanshan were paralyzed on the ground. All the bones in their bodies were broken, and their internal organs were in tatters. They were torn apart by the force of the impact and were extremely miserable. But the two of them didn't care about their injuries at all. The mental impact was far stronger than their physical injuries. The two of them stared blankly at Suzan, their expressions as if they could see a ghost were extremely real. You have achieved a breakthrough. As Wajan masters, they would naturally not feel wrong about the undisguised fluctuations in energy. But, how is this possible? In just a few days, he broke through from dark energy to transformation energy, so what does his decades of hard training mean? The two of them are already regarded as peerless geniuses in the world of martial arts, otherwise they would not have broken through to the level of strength, but in front of this giant python, the two of them are like inconspicuous waste. It's not a one-dimensional existence at all. Suzan ventriloquism. I have to thank you two for your secret skills. These words immediately frightened Xu Zonggung and the two of them. Originally, the two of them thought that even if they were given the secret technique, the giant python might not be able to successfully cultivate it so quickly, so they thought it was just a delaying tactic. But I never thought about it. This Black Emperor cannot be judged by common sense at all. The two of them looked at each other, and both saw the shock and frustration, followed by a kind of fear from deep in their hearts. This kind of talent is truly an eternal monster. The two of them could not help but feel that this Black Emperor Python could really become the last monster in the world in the Age of Ending Law. If he is really allowed to cultivate to reach the heavens, I don't know who will be able to control him by then. The two masters swallowed their saliva subconsciously. Suzan's python tail has been raised high, and he has no interest in accompanying the two of them to continue to perfect it. Xu Zonggung said anxiously. Wait a minute, then kill us again. He spoke very fast. Black Emperor, I know you have always been interested in information about the Age of Ending Law. I swear to God, the Sakura country has the information you need about the monks from the ancient times. Many treasures flowed to the Sakura country along with the war. And the supporter behind the underground base is also the Sakura country. If you go to the Sakura country, you will definitely get what you want. Only. The words are not finished yet. The python's tail covered with scales had swept down. Two muffled bangs. Suddenly there were two more balls of meat in the cave. The two Grand Masters had no ability to resist at all and were killed instantly. Suzan curled his lips inwardly. Without having to listen to what they said, he knew what medicine they were selling. It was simply because they saw their heaven-defying talent and knew that a monstrous war would inevitably break out in the future. They said these words before they died, simply because they wanted to divert trouble to the east and led themselves to the Sakura kingdom. But this is superfluous. Do you really think I'm stupid? Suzan sneered. He already had ideas for his next actions. He really didn't plan to go to the Dragon Kingdom. Sakura country is his first choice target. The reason is also very simple. Pick the soft persimmons. It is naturally impossible to say that Suzan doesn't have any special feelings for Long Guo. But, on the road of evolution, everyone must step aside. Whoever stands in the way will die. This is the most fundamental principle of Suzan. If he wants to embark on the road of transforming into a true dragon, he will inevitably need a large number of ancient classics for reference in the future. They are not the kind of mass merchandise that is circulated among the public, but genuine and unique books that are treasured and collected. The Dragon Kingdom has a profound heritage, and there must be many such unique copies. But the Dragon Kingdom is dangerous. With Suzan's current strength, if he stirs up trouble in the Dragon Kingdom and really angers the Dragon Kingdom, nuclear weapons will teach him how to behave. But Sakura country is different. During the war that year, many such authentic and unique copies were plundered and taken to the Sakura kingdom, but the corresponding military force of the Sakura kingdom was not that strong. Although its military strength is not bad internationally. But the lack of the threat of nuclear weapons is undoubtedly more friendly to Suzan. As long as I deal with it carefully and continue to grow with the resources of Sakura kingdom, when one day I am no longer afraid of nuclear weapons, I will be able to reach anything as big as the Blue Star. Then the Dragon Kingdom will naturally have the same fate. And there is another advantage to using Sakura country as a springboard. Sakura country is close to the sea. If there is any crisis, I can just dive into the sea and the safety factor will be greatly improved. Suzan's thoughts turned. He knows. I am an alien in this world. Unless you hide in the deep mountains and forests and never come out, sooner or later you will be exposed to the world. That being the case, it is better to seize every opportunity to take the initiative to grow. As long as you have invincible strength, what if you are the enemy of the world? He already knew it. The forest he was in was an island located on the border of the Dragon Kingdom, not too far from the Sakura Kingdom. Wait until this underground base is solved. He can then head across the sea towards Sakura country. So, the actions of Xu Zonggung and Li Wanxian were definitely unnecessary. Suzan himself knew how to weigh the pros and cons. But this also shows how powerful was the shock that Suzan brought to the two masters. So much so that he was a little confused before he died. Shake his head. Suzan put aside these distracting thoughts, his pupils gradually became cold. Those are all plans for later. He has only one goal now. Underground base. Revenge and plunder resources. It's time for a reckoning. Suzan doesn't want to waste time, he will avenge himself. It just so happened that the snake control method he created could come in handy. He also wanted to know how many venomous snakes there were in this forest. Underground base. It had been almost 2 days since Xu Shiqing contacted Watanabe Hanchuan. During this period, she had asked countless times, but her second uncle and Li Wanxian still had not returned. The men and horses sent to respond did not see any trace at all. One of the teams even lost contact. So far, even if she didn't want to believe it, she was prepared for the worst. That means the Black Emperor killed the two masters. Thinking of my second uncle. A trace of regret emerged in her heart. If she had not wanted to negotiate with the Black Emperor and directly asked the two Grand Masters to go with heavy firepower, maybe things like this would not have happened. Xu Shiqing's eyes were cold. We can't give Black Emperor any more time to grow, otherwise it will be difficult to catch him if he escapes later. I don't know when there will be news from General Watanabe. It's been 2 days. Why haven't you given me a reply? He will definitely be interested after seeing Black Emperor's information. You have to do it as soon as possible, otherwise. Thoughts raced through her mind. Xu Shiqing always felt like she was racing against time. In the past few days, she even stopped all experiments and stepped up patrols and defenses around the base. Although it feels like the probability of the Black Emperor coming to attack is extremely small. But now she already has a feeling of worrying about gain and loss. At this time, a special signal vibration sound finally sounded. Xu Shiqing's spirit was shaken, and her eyes showed joy. Connected. A middle-aged man wearing a Sakura Nation military uniform suddenly appeared on the big screen. It was Watanabe Hanchuan, the general manager of the biological experimental base. Meet the general, Xu Shiqing said respectfully. Watanabe Hanchuan's status in Sakura country is not low, and the Watanabe family is an extremely prosperous family in Sakura country. They are a real behemoth in the 4 realms of military, politics, business, and ninja. Miss Xu, I have read the information you sent me. Where is Black Emperor? Watanabe Hanchuan had a sinister look on his face, but at this time, there was a rare hint of excitement on his face. He is not a loser. From Xu Shiqing's speculations, we can see the huge potential of the Black Emperor Python, which is very important to Sakura country. If he can get this great credit, he may even become a true giant of the Sakura army in the future. So he was very excited. Xu Shiqing said in a deep voice. Your Excellency General, this giant python is extremely cunning and powerful. The 2 Longguo Huajin Grand Masters that I used my personal connections to invite have most likely been killed by him. General, I need fire support. As long as the Black Emperor is captured, I will definitely give you a satisfactory answer, General. Seeing Watanabe Hanchuin, her anxiety these days finally slowly dissipated. No matter how powerful the Black Emperor is, he will surely surrender in the face of absolute fire suppression. Watanabe Hanchuin was a little shocked. All the Wajan Grandmasters in the Dragon Kingdom's martial arts world were killed by this Black Emperor Python. He was shocked at first, then became even more excited, and even couldn't help laughing. Good, very good. The more powerful the Black Emperor is, the higher his potential is. Shu sang, your experiment this time was very successful. The Empire will never forget your contribution. Watanabe Hanchuin was extremely excited. The current Sakura Kingdom is really trying every means to enhance its strength. The rapid development of the Dragon Kingdom next to it has really brought too much pressure. The hatred of the last century is not so easy to erase, so Sakura Kingdom has always been very afraid of the Dragon Kingdom. If such a giant python can be reproduced, then Sakura country will definitely usher in an unprecedented qualitative change. A highly intelligent giant python may not be able to control thermal weapons. Coupled with the powerful single strength, it is definitely a nightmare for enemies on the battlefield. If some armored weapons are tailor-made for the giant python, Watanabe Hanchuin simply cannot imagine it. Shu Shiqing also gradually became enthusiastic. This is basically consistent with what she thought, and her idea is even crazier. I'm worried that something will happen, and I would like to ask Your Excellency, General, to provide fire support as soon as possible. Watanabe Hanchuin nodded first, then shook his head and said, no problem, but the location of the R-12,903 underground base is relatively sensitive. It is not easy to send fighter jets here. How about this? 3 days, give me 3 days. I will apply for a military exercise in that sea area. At that time, fighter jets will quietly come to the island to provide support. We must solve the problem and capture the Black Emperor as soon as possible to avoid causing a dragon in the long run. The country's suspicion. After all, this is nominally the domain of the Dragon Kingdom to some extent. Smuggling over is not that easy. This is undoubtedly a safer way. A huge boulder fell to the ground in Shu Shiqing's heart. The power of the fighter jets was unstoppable even by the Dragon Kingdom's Danjin heavenly people, and the Black Emperor certainly couldn't stop it. Now, just wait quietly. Yes, Your Excellency, General. Shu Shiqing smiled respectfully. Just be careful when the time comes. You can severely injure the Black Emperor, but don't let him die. Don't worry, Shu sang, the Empire's pilot skills are beyond your imagination. Watanabe Hanchuin also laughed. The two of them had already begun to think about how to deal with the Black Emperor after catching him. At this time, a frightened voice suddenly sounded from outside the door. Supervisor, come and take a look, something big has happened. There are so many snakes, so many snakes. Watanabe Hanchuin naturally heard the panicked shouts and couldn't help but frown. Shu sang, it seems that your abilities still need to be improved. Maybe you can ask me for advice if you have time. Said. He was about to hang up the communication. But Shu Shiqing quickly stopped her. Her heart twitched slightly, and an ominous premonition suddenly arose. Your Majesty General, please wait a moment. The situation is probably a bit bad. Watanabe Hanchuin's eyes narrowed. Shu Shiqing quickly shouted to her assistant. What is going on? Share the picture quickly. The assistant's eyes were full of fear, and that kind of heartfelt fear was not fake at all. So many snakes. There are so many snakes outside the base. I suspect that all the snakes on this island are here. He hurriedly switched the camera surveillance outside the base, and the horrifying scene suddenly appeared in front of Shu Shiqing and Watanabe Hanchuin. Snake. There are snakes everywhere. Outside the base, snakes crawled out from the jungle in the distance. They were densely packed and squirming towards the base, making constant hissing sounds. The scene looked particularly terrifying. It was as if there was something in the forest that was driving them forward without fear of death. Watanabe Hanchuin was shocked and angry. What is happening? Shu Shiqing's eyes were horrified, and her voice began to change. It's the Black Emperor. It must be the Black Emperor. He's coming for revenge. He wants to take revenge on the base. How dare he do this fool thing? She was already a little crazy. The nightmare of these days seemed to reappear before her eyes, making her heart beat violently. Watanabe Hanchuin suddenly shouted, "That's enough. Shu Shiqing, calm down. The Black Emperor is just a giant python. It's not as scary as you think. The base has guarding power. You can completely defend it in 3 days. These snakes just look scary. Throw some grenades and you can blow them up to nothing." Shu Shiqing shook her head crazily. "No, General, you don't understand. With the cunning character of the Black Emperor, he will never fight an uncertain battle. We cannot hold out in 3 days. General, I need support, now, immediately, immediately." She stared at Watanabe Hanchuin. Watanabe Banchuin frowned. He knew from the fear in Shu Shiqing's eyes that something was unusual. He said in a deep voice, "One day, I will apply for temporary military exercises now, but it will only take a day at the earliest. No, I can't wait even a day, the Black Emperor will be here soon." The words have not yet finished. An extremely sharp and harsh neighing sound immediately echoed in everyone's ears. Hiss. The neighing sound was like a demon screaming from hell, or like metal being scratched by something sharp. Even though the sound had been weakened a lot when it was transmitted through layers of obstacles, everyone couldn't help it showing an extremely uncomfortable look. But what's even scarier is, as the neighing sound sounded, a burst of dense explosions echoed continuously. Bang 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 bang. All electronic equipment outside the base was completely destroyed almost at the same time. Sensors, cameras, defense grids, everything was instantly destroyed by this terrifying roar. Of course, it also includes the call signal with Watanabe Hanchuin. Looking at the big screen that was completely turned off, an unprecedented fear arose in Shu Shiqing's heart. She had never seen this scene before. His second uncle and Li Wanshan completely lost contact after this terrifying scream. "Can I hold on for 1 day?" Shu Shiqing was in a trance, and then her eyes gradually became firm, even crazy. "You have to hold on even if you can't hold on. Go and mobilize all defense forces and weapons and equipment to support the first floor. I'll be here right away," said. Shu Shiqing went straight to the 3rd floor. And at the same time, looking at the signal that was completely cut off, Watanabe Hanchuin stood up instinctively, his face full of uncertainty. "Just now I was still thinking about the future. In the blink of an eye, a giant python was killed at the base, and it was still such a threat. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have doubted it. If the base really fell, Shu Shiqing died, and the Black Emperor python disappeared, then he would definitely not be able to accept such a result. Why does it happen at this time?" His eyes were cold and he roared. "Send the order, and an emergency meeting will be held in 1 hour to conduct emergency military exercises, targeting the location of Sea Area Number 19. "Yes, General." The heavily guarded military base immediately began to operate. Watanabe Hanchuin took a deep breath and suppressed the anxiety in his heart. "Shu Shiqing, you'd better hold on. And the other side. Dragon Kingdom military base. Also running wildly, Guo Taohai's eyes were full of seriousness as he convened a military meeting. "Everyone, just now, our intelligence specialist once again intercepted Sakura Country's confidential signal. Its source is an island in Sea Area 19. The island is covered with virgin forest, and Sakura Country's biological experimental base is located among them. Sakura Country's ambition is to use the resources of our Dragon Country to carry out inhumane biological experiments. It must be destroyed. As we all know, there has always been a huge dispute in Sea Area 19. Neither Sakura Country nor our Dragon Country give in. It is difficult to directly send military forces to the island. So, I decided to secretly dispatch a special team to wipe out this underground base in one fell swoop in the name of starting a military exercise." Guo Taohai's eyes were full of determination. Many officers responded. "Please give instructions, Chief." At this moment, a soldier's urgent voice sounded outside the conference room. "Chief, urgent information, Sakura Kingdom's No. 3 Naval Unit has just held an emergency meeting and will conduct emergency military exercises tomorrow. The event location is Sea Area 19. As soon as this statement came out, everyone's expressions suddenly changed. Just now they were talking about the biological base in Sea Area 19, but unexpectedly they received this urgent information. Guo Taohai narrowed his eyes. It seems, we caught a big fish this time, he said categorically. Everyone listen to the order, pass on the order, and start preparations immediately. Tomorrow our naval force will also launch an emergency military exercise in Sea Area 19. Build the plank road openly, secretly infiltrate Chenkang, and secretly send special forces to the island indicated by the signal source. I want to see what kind of shit is in Sakura country's pants. Everyone is murderous. Peaceful years. War cannot break out at will, and military exercises are the best force deterrents. The Dragon Kingdom will never give in. The naval military bases of the two countries are undercurrents, and they start to run crazily like huge war machines. See Area 19 and the island where the R-12,903 underground base is located. It seems to have become the center of the vortex. At this time, Suzan was staring coldly at the underground base in front of him, preparing to take the next step. After being promoted to Wajan, Suzan wasted no time and headed towards the underground base. On the way, we even met a team of responders sent from the underground base. Needless to say, the result is natural. Those submachine guns couldn't even penetrate Suzan's snake-scale outer armor, and it was extremely difficult to leave even a few marks. After a bloody massacre, Suzan left 2 people alive and tortured him, getting more information about the defense of the underground base. Message of power. Adding some additions to what the 2 human masters said, Suzan's information became more comprehensive. Then, there was this scene in front of me. The snakes are dancing wildly, as terrifying as demons appearing in the world. As Suzan's strength increases now, the effect of his snake control technique is no longer comparable to what it was when he first traveled through the world. Just by walking around in the forest, he summoned countless venomous snakes, including several of them. Huge python. Although the strength of these ordinary snakes is not that good, they are still very good for causing trouble. Suzan needs them to create opportunities for himself. Hiss. The poisonous snakes screamed and charged towards the silver-white base in front of them without fear of death, getting closer and closer, looking for every possible gap to crawl into the base. Finally, the combatants in the base couldn't hold it any longer. Their scalps felt numb as they looked at the dense snakes. Shoot. Concentrate the fire. One by one, the combatants wearing protective clothing began to shoot fiercely at the surrounding sea of snakes. Hang kong 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 kong. The sound of machine gun fire was extremely clear and continuous, and the muzzle of the gun was spitting out sparks crazily. The snakes in front of you were so dense that you didn't even need to deliberately aim. Shooting at will cause flesh and blood to fly everywhere. In a blink, that is, large numbers of venomous snakes were shot and exploded. In the face of human firearms, these ordinary snakes are too fragile. The poisonous snake escaped the hail of bullets, but after touching the electric grid with flashing blue sparks, it was burned to char almost instantly. The guards couldn't help laughing and gradually relaxed. Just now I was shocked by the terrifying scene before me, but now I realized that this group of snakes seemed to be nothing more than that. For a while, everyone was shooting wildly. Suzan watched calmly and shook his head slowly. These ordinary snakes are too weak compared to him. If there is a chance to cultivate a group of powerful super-evolved snakes in the future, they may be of help to him. But, his purpose has been achieved. The biggest threat to me outside the base is the defensive power grid. My scale armor defense is tough enough, but I still don't want to resist the high-voltage electricity easily. The purpose is to drive snakes away from attacking the base. It is to allow more gaps in the base to leak out. So, only his sonic vibration method can be most effective. As these guards stepped forward to shoot, door after door opened, and the opportunity had arrived. Boom! The powerful heart beats continuously. After transforming the energy, the effects of Suzan's various secret techniques are enhanced several times. Muscles vibrate and strength increases. Hiss! The python's hissing, which was even more terrifying than before, resounded from the forest again. The neighing was very sharp, but it also sounded like thunder, which was particularly terrifying. The sound of extremely dense electric bursts resounded in everyone's ears. Each sensor became scrap metal. The transformer also exploded with sparks. The power grid outside the base was flashing with blue sparks, alternating between light and dark, and then completely extinguished. But the guards had no time to pay attention to this at this time, because after the terrifying neighing sound rang in their ears, everyone's heart beat wildly, their faces turned pale, and they almost fell to the ground because their blood stagnated. They had no doubts. If they weren't isolated by special protective clothing, they would have convulsed and fallen to the ground immediately. This neighing sound is really terrifying. Everyone looked at the dark place in horror, as if there was an evil monster peeping there. Everyone had a new understanding of the terror of the Black Emperor. How is it different from the legendary monster? But at this time, there was no extra time for them to think. No more grid hindrance. The sea of snakes has begun to spread towards this side. Don't let them come, shoot. Grenade ready. The grenades were thrown out one after another, and the scene suddenly became more bloody. Flesh and blood were flying everywhere, and the venomous snakes were blown into pieces. Suzan gradually felt a fierceness rising in his heart. At this time, he used Rui's body to maintain a length of 6 or 7 meters, which was similar to several other pythons, and even shorter than one of the 8-meter-long pythons. He is moving forward with the sea of snakes. 300 meters. 200 meters. 100 meters. 50 meters. The distance is getting closer. His flexible body seemed to have just passed through the hail of bullets inadvertently. Even the color of the snake scales had changed after being specially disguised. These people did not realize that the Black Emperor they had always been afraid of was about to come under their noses without realizing it. Most of their attention was still focused on the dense forest, keeping an eye out for the Black Emperor's appearance. Now I just want to shoot as many venomous snakes as possible. Finally, Suzan's presence attracted the attention of the guards. Concentrate fire on the python in the northeast direction of 132. In an instant, countless bullets poured towards Suzan. If it were an ordinary python, he would definitely die in this wave. However, Suzan was obviously no ordinary python. A trace of sarcasm flashed across his pupils, and he finally stopped hiding himself. The hunt has officially begun. He sneered in his heart beat violently, and his ubiquitous strength suddenly exploded, and his speed suddenly surged several times. Whoosh! It's as fast as a black lightning. He rushed over from a distance of tens of meters almost in the blink of an eye. When the wishful body is used to shrink the body, it will make the speed faster. In the frightened eyes of these guards, Suzan rushed into the defensive line in an instant. Not only that, the body that was originally only 6 or 7 meters long suddenly began to expand as if blown by air. The crisp sound of cracking bones echoed in front of everyone, and everyone couldn't help but feel the ultimate horror in their eyes. Only what's in front of you. A truly ferocious creature appeared instantly. His whole body is covered with dark scales, with mysterious blood lines on them. The flaky raised bone spurs on his head make him completely different from ordinary python heads, full of ferocity and domineering. More importantly, by visual inspection, it was at least 20 meters away. Everyone present could not help but gasp, especially those who knew some information about the Black Emperor, who were even more horrified. Yes, it's the Black Emperor. He's getting stronger again. This cunning guy fooled us and he rushed in. Close the door. Close the door quickly. Go tell the supervisor. Roars resounded one after another, and then crazy firepower poured towards Suzan, but what shocked everyone was that the dark black scales kept flying sparks, but there was no sign of breaking. This violent firepower is like tickling the Black Emperor. This level of defense is simply terrifying. Suzan opened the python's mouth, looked up to the sky and hissed, and all the snakes screamed together. The scene was terrifying. You want to close the door now. It's too late. There was strong murderous intent and ferocity in his pupils, and he was reborn as a snake. Suzan's character was also affected by the instinct of this creature to a certain extent, and he was violent and cruel when fighting. He looked at the people who were retreating in panic. The slender and thick python tail flicked casually, like thunder striking in the air, and 7 or 8 guards were instantly blasted. The protective clothing could not stop them at all. Several people were violently beaten into blood mist, and their bones and internal organs were scattered everywhere. The scene was particularly terrifying. Suzan is like a tiger among sheep. Start a killing spree. How could Suzan not hate it? After trying their best to escape from this underground base, they were hunted down one after another. These people regarded themselves as prey and as experimental subjects with amazing potential. Although it is a matter of stance, the hatred is equally irreconcilable. Of course it's okay for the opponent to capture him, and it's also natural for him to kill the opponent. Suzan was filled with anger. Has been dormant. At this time, I finally found an opportunity to vent. Hiss. The violent python hissed. All the poisonous snakes sensed the emperor's anger, and they attacked the base frantically. Everyone was stunned by the horrific scene in front of them, swallowing saliva instinctively. At this moment, they regretted not lowering the door earlier. Maybe it would be a shame to hide behind a giant python behind closed doors, but at least that would allow them to save your own life. The frantic shooting continued. Above the crisis of life and death, human potential is equally astonishing. Adrenaline continued to secrete, temporarily overpowering his inner fear, and someone pulled out a grenade and threw it at Suzan. Suzan smiled disdainfully. His speed was too fast, and the speed of his blows was even faster. While the grenade was still flying in the air, he had accurately captured it and struck it back hard. Boom! Fireworks exploded among the crowd. There were screams of ghosts crying and wolves howling everywhere. Suzan's killing continues. While dodging a large amount of firepower, he was constantly lashing out with the python's tail. What is the concept of a body of 21 meters? It stood up to 7 or 8 stories high. Any random twitch is carried with immense force. Not to mention the abundant blessings. Suzan rolled up the python's tail, and the high-voltage power grid that had lost its effectiveness was immediately crushed into a ball, uprooted, and smashed into the crowd. There were broken limbs and bloody mist everywhere. Snakes followed Suzan's attack and also came closer. The guards suffered heavy casualties. These people were soldiers with better physical fitness. At most, some of them had practiced national martial arts or nindo, but none of them were at a high level. In front of Suzan, they were no different from older ants. Close the door quickly. Close the door and leave the people outside alone. Someone yelled in fear at the door, ready to give up on those who were still outside. Suzan naturally heard it clearly. He smiled sarcastically. In the heart, more and more power surged, and the strength spurted out. The thick python body rolled up a huge boulder, and threw it towards the gate like a catapult. The violent power is matched by the weight of the boulder itself. It's simply more terrifying than a cannonball. The roaring wind roared, and the boulder smashed into the door with huge force. The few people behind the door who could not escape were crushed into meat patties in an instant, while the remaining people ran crazily behind them. Boom! There was a loud bang. The door was actually dented by a violent smash. Everyone was stunned by the terrifying scene in front of them. It was much more terrifying than the catapults in the ancient cold weapon era. The impact was frightening. Suzan hissed. His body turned into lightning, and he finally rushed into the long-lost place. He escaped from this hall in the first place. Looking at the familiar snake boxes, where there were snakes neighing but unable to come out at all, Suzan couldn't help but raise his head to the sky and hiss. The violent body is the most ferocious weapon. Suzan's python body was either whipped or hit, and each snake box couldn't withstand the huge force and burst into pieces in an instant. Hiss. All the snakes in the snake box are released and join the sea of snakes. The scene suddenly became more terrifying. Suzan's body moved forward slowly, with snakes guarding and worshipping behind him. His cold eyes stared at the remaining dozen people, who all looked at Suzan in horror and kept retreating. But behind, there is no way out. That's the entrance to the second underground floor. But at this time the entrance was tightly sealed. It was obvious that these people had been given up. Xu Shiqing did not expect that the Black Emperor could be so terrifying. She had just finished deploying the lower level, but the upper level had already been captured. In desperation, she had no choice but to abandon the first level. Don't come over, don't come over. Hey Emperor, the one who has a grudge against you is Xu Shiqing. We have no ill will towards you, no ill will. Between life and death, the ugliness of human nature is undoubtedly revealed. Everyone was squeezing back crazily, not wanting to face the terrifying python Suzan, and the weak ones were undoubtedly pushed to the front. A trace of disdain and contempt flashed in Suzan's eyes. His body swept away and his strength exploded. Then kill all these people in an instant. The first floor of the underground base was completely destroyed. No one was alive anymore. The smell of blood was everywhere, which was horrifying. Without looking at the lump of meat, Suzan looked towards the entrance to the second underground floor. His eyes narrowed, and the python's tail whipped forward. Bang! There was a dull sound, and a huge hole was dented in the back of the metal door, but Suzan could feel a strong resistance coming from behind. Obviously, the entrance is tightly sealed, and I'm afraid there are many things blocked behind it. With his strength, it would probably take a lot of time and energy to force a breakthrough. But he needed to hurry. Because we don't know how fast the reinforcements from the underground base will come. He has better options. Suzan looked down at the pipes on the wall and sneered in his heart. After learning the general structure of the underground base, he had already thought of various plans. The current situation was what he expected. The sound of cracking bones came, and Suzan became a four-dimensional man in the blink of an eye. A meter-long python. This is the limit of today's wishful body. It can shrink his body to about 1/5 of its original size. Second underground floor. Several scientific researchers were listening with fear to the huge noise coming from above. They had retreated in a hurry, and the large army had already retreated to the last floor. A few of them were accidentally missed. Boom, boom. Violent crashes continued. They knew it was the sound of the blocked entrance being struck. Everyone couldn't help but tremble with fear. The terror of the Black Emperor has been known to everyone. This is an unprecedented, terrifying python. After waiting for a while, the crashing sound gradually stopped. Several people looked at him with surprise and uncertainty. Could it be that Black Emperor couldn't open the door and left? They just breathed a sigh of relief. Then a faint sound of rubbing was heard, and the sound became increasingly dense, causing everyone to subconsciously look above their heads. Next moment, everyone's eyes widened and they screamed in panic. Boom! After hearing a loud noise, the pipe above their heads burst instantly, and then, venomous snakes fell from the sky, crawling all over their bodies in an instant. Everyone screamed wildly, which made people's hair stand on end. Suzan fell in the center, watching this scene coldly without any sympathy. These people deserved their death. He slowly scanned the second floor. It can be seen that it is a mess. Almost all important things have been taken away, and the rest that cannot be taken away are either locked up or directly destroyed. He escaped quite quickly. He opened his mouth and let out a silent sneer. However, it is not without residue. Suzan's python tail whipped towards a place, and the metal box exploded instantly, and a figure appeared. He was one of Xu Shiqing's assistants, and he had a high status in the entire base. When I just conveyed the news, I was a step too late. Unexpectedly, Xu Shiqing gave up and stayed on the second floor. Seeing the terrifying Black Emperor in front of him and the terrifying scene of everyone outside being bitten by poisonous snakes, the man's body trembled and he said in a trembling voice, "Hey Emperor, please give me a pleasure. I can tell you where the remaining genetic fluid on the second level is, as well as the information on the third level." There was hatred in his eyes. If Xu Shiqing hadn't abandoned her, how could she have ended up like this? In this case, no one would have an easy time. He knew the cruelty of the Black Emperor, and he didn't even beg for life. He just didn't want to die as miserably as those people outside and suffer huge pain before death. Suzan's pupils stared, nods slowly. He seemed to be laughing silently. This is the bad nature of human beings, and they will betray each other at critical moments. Soon, a row of genetic fluid was placed in front of Suzan, a total of 10. Suzan felt happy. It's quite a harvest. These 10 genetic fluids can conservatively estimate that Suzan's body size can increase by 4 meters again. After more than 20 meters. Every meter of growth requires more energy than before. Of course, every time you grow 1 meter, the improvement you get is far beyond what you can compare with the previous meter. Not an exaggeration. Now Suzan's strength and defense will increase by several % for every meter he grows. 4 meters in length, enough to more than double his strength. Suzan was in a pretty good mood. The counterattack on the underground base was, firstly, for revenge, and secondly, naturally, for the resources for growth. Otherwise, if he was allowed to hunt, his growth would be much slower. These 10 bottles of genetic fluid. Considered an appetizer. The third level is the main dish. Suzan's heart was filled with murderous intent and passion. The assistant in front of him was still talking about the third-level information. Suzan listened and felt more confident. An unknown mutated giant python. Shu Shiqing, is this your trump card? He smiled disdainfully. A hint of fighting spirit arose in his heart. The thermal weapons in this underground base basically did not pose a fatal threat to him. This so-called mutant python did make him a little curious. Grow up to now. Suzan has no opponent in this jungle. He wanted to see what Shu Shiqing's confidence was. Think so. He gave the assistant a happy slap with a casual slap. This is the second floor. It has completely turned into a sea of snakes. Above the pipe, venomous snakes continued to fall from above. Suzan looked up to the sky and hissed. Countless snakes hissed wildly, worshipping their king. A short time. The underground base has been almost completely captured, with only the final third floor remaining. The whole process didn't even take more than half an hour. Just in time. Wait until I absorb these 10 bottles of genetic fluid first. Suzan calculated silently. Although he was absolutely sure, the more powerful he would be, the easier it would be to deal with it. Anyway, with his current terrifying size, it would not take much time to absorb the genetic fluid. Think so. He no longer hesitated and swallowed all 10 bottles of genetic fluid into his belly. Boom. In an instant, incomparably rich energy burst out in Suzan's body instantly. Unprecedented explosive energy surged through the body, but it did not cause Suzan much trouble. He was simply too strong now. The vital heart keeps beating. The muscles contract, the strength is full, and the python bones vibrate. The violent energy instantly turned into a little sheep and was guided everywhere. After swallowing the genetic fluid several times in succession, Suzan was already familiar with the process. At this time, without spending any extra effort, the genetic fluid was completely guided to where it should go. At a speed visible to the naked eye, Suzan's body began to grow rapidly. The scales are thicker, the fangs are sharper, and the poison in the body is even more terrifying. There are no more blood exploding on the surface of his body. Now his body is not as fragile as before. Such growth can no longer tear his body apart. All snakes are instinctively reverent. Although there is no wisdom. But he also knew how fierce the behemoth in front of him was. An hour later, the transformation is over. Suzan hissed violently, and his neighing was even more ferocious than ever. A terrifying giant python that was 25 meters long, or even nearly 26 meters long, appeared in the underground base on the second floor. If anyone saw this scene, their heart would stop. What a giant this is! Suzan was in a happy mood. It was not much different from what he had expected. The size had grown by 4 meters, or even more. Compared to before he broke into the underground base, his strength has more than doubled. This feeling of soaring strength is really wonderful. If he were left to hunt alone, he didn't know how long it would take him to achieve such rapid growth. The flesh and blood of ordinary beasts gradually became less helpful to his growth. This is the thought. He is even more looking forward to the third level. There are more genetic fluids and more mutated snakes, which are nutrients for his growth. Not only that, various research materials on this underground base, the locations of some bases in Sakura country, and more information about the age of ending law are all very important to him. This is why Suzan chose to take a certain risk to attack this base. He wants to use the resources of this base to push his strength to the peak. In this way, you will have enough confidence to leave the island and go to other places. Now, it's time for the final reckoning. Suzan's pupils were full of dominance. Having just traveled through time, Shu Shiqing was an extremely terrifying existence to him. With a wave of his hand, countless mechanical arms descended from the sky and captured hundreds of venomous snakes. And now, he has become Shu Shiqing's nightmare. The offensive and defensive momentum is exchanged. Looking at the metal door leading to the third floor in front of him, a cold light rose in Suzan's pupils. The assistant just said that this metal door is made of a special alloy and cannot be opened from the outside after being deadlocked. It is much more defensive than the door on the second floor that was blocked just now. Bang! Suzan's python tail whips. The majestic force exploded, and the alloy door bulged, but it was obviously far from shattered. The defense is indeed amazing. After all, the terrifying power brought by his current 25-meter body is even enough to blow up an armored vehicle. But Suzan obviously has another trump card. He smiled inwardly and stepped back slightly. The next moment, his python's mouth opened wide, and a black poisonous mist with a fishy smell instantly sprayed forward. Poisonous fog. After evolving the suffocating poison, Suzan never had the chance to use it. At this time, it happens to be an opportunity. The black poisonous mist instantly adhered to the alloy door. In an instant, a scalp-numbing sizzling sound suddenly came from the alloy door. To this day, the evolved venom is already so corrosive that even the thick alloy door in front of you can't bear it. Just for a moment, it has become bumpy. Suzan hissed wildly, spurting out strength, swinging his thick python tail crazily, and hitting the bumpy door with violent force. Boom! Only a violent roar was heard, and the door flew towards the back instantly. A dark passage suddenly appeared in front of Suzan. Spread far away. Suzan had seen this place before. When the two human masters came to negotiate with him, Xu Shiqing had shown him the tip of the iceberg of the base. Behind the passage was where a large number of liquid column tanks were placed. This is also the true essence of the entire underground base. The poisonous snakes squirmed forward excitedly. Suzan, on the other hand, remained calm and stopped behind. He stared down the passage. I felt a hint of danger from the middle. The next moment, the blazing lights suddenly lit up, the darkness dissipated, and terrifying rays of laser light shot out from all parts of the passage. They were extremely high temperature, extremely sharp, densely packed, and cut back and forth. Just for a moment, the group of snakes that poured into the passage were all cut into pieces. The strong smell of blood erupted, as terrifying as a Shira field. Suzan's pupils couldn't help but shrink. At the end of the passage, a familiar and beautiful figure appeared. Xu Shiqing looked at the giant python opposite her with complex eyes filled with fear, resentment, fanaticism, and expectation. She sighed longly. "Hey Emperor, we finally meet." "Yes, finally met." Suzan looked at that beautiful and moving figure. Seriously, this can be regarded as the first official meeting between Suzan and Xu Shiqing. I had just traveled through time, and I only glanced at it from a distance in the snake box. At that time, Suzan was just a 1-meter-long little snake. I also saw him through a video projection later, but really speaking, these two people first face-to-face conversation. Although separated by a murderous laser channel, Suzan's pupils were cold, and he did not deliberately pretend to be smart. By now, he knew that his wisdom could no longer be concealed from the other party. And on the opposite side, Xu Shiqing's eyes gradually became filled with enthusiasm. She looked at Suzan's smooth and slender python body. The thick and tough blood-patterned snake scales fascinated her so much, and the ferocious and domineering head couldn't help but make her face flush. What a perfect creation. Unfortunately, you have misunderstood me. If you are willing to cooperate with me, I will help you grow to unprecedented heights, and even dominate the entire world. Xu Shiqing murmured and sighed. Originally, her heart was filled with panic and fear. How long has it been? It hadn't even been 2 hours since the discovery of the snake riot, but the first 2 floors of the base had already fallen. One can imagine the fate of those people outside. Originally, Xu Shiqing wanted to do her best to keep Suzan out of the base, but when intelligence from the outside continued to come in, she made a decisive decision to abandon the outer 2 layers and build a 3rd layer of defense with all her strength. The laser channel at this time is one of them. Only, Suzan arrived faster than she imagined. Even such a thick alloy door could not stop the giant python. This level of fighting power frightened her. But, after meeting Suzan, the fear in my heart slowly dissipated unexpectedly. In order to guard against the python's terrifying sound waves, she used the base's backup energy and protected it at all levels. In other words, at this time, the base has been completely sealed off from the outside world. It is impossible for Suzan to use sonic vibration to shatter the laser channel settings. As long as I delay for 1 day, General Watanabe's support will arrive. If you don't succeed, you will succeed. Thinking like this, Xu Shiqing gradually calmed down. She looked at the terrifying python body that was more than 20 meters long, and stared into Suzan's pupils. Hey Emperor, I know you want to kill me most, come on. Let me see your true strength. Today, either you will kill me, or you will be caught by me. At that time, I will retaliate against you severely and transform you into a killing machine with wisdom but never freedom. Xu Shiqing opened her arms and laughed maniacally. As laughter rang out, behind her, evolved snakes of different shapes gradually emerged, guarding Xu Shiqing, making her look like the queen of snakes. Su Zan's mouth slowly opened, letting out a silent laugh. Then, as you wish. The dull and majestic ventriloquism hum sounded. Xu Shiqing's laughter stopped suddenly, and a strong sense of disbelief rose in her eyes. That voice was clearly what Black Emperor said. A python can actually talk. Even though she had overestimated Su Zan's intelligence as much as possible, she still received a severe shock when Su Zan really started talking. As Su Zan finished speaking, the snakes beside him also hissed. As if to say, Su Zan is the real Snake Emperor. Su Zan's pupils were filled with murderous intent. Xu Shiqing was not given much time to react. Next moment, his mouth opened wide, and his abdominal muscles vibrated with all their strength. Hiss! Terrifying and sharp sound waves vibrated wildly. However, there was no sign of damage to the laser in the passage. Xu Shiqing's fear that just arose turned into extremely excited laughter. Hey Emperor! You still want to do this? It's useless. You can speak, good. Very good. You are getting more and more perfect. I must dissect you severely to see how every piece of flesh and blood in your body is structured. How can you form such a perfect creation? This was her way of venting her fears. Su Zan smiled disdainfully. Xu Shiqing had a bad premonition in her heart. She turned back sharply. He discovered that the group of evolved snakes behind him started to become manic and showed signs of being out of control. She was horrified as never before. How is that possible? These are the children I created, and they will only obey my orders. Su Zan's eyes were sarcastic. He had already sensed the distinctive pheromones when the snakes appeared. It was not easy to control these snakes, but it was no problem to disrupt the control part. That sonic scream just now. One is to test and destroy the laser channel in front of you. The second one was mixed with snake-controlled techniques, which caused the group of evolved snakes on the opposite side to stir up chaos, leaving Xu Shiqing without the energy to take care of the situation here. Although the first goal was not achieved, the sense of crisis in the passage in front of him did not dissipate. But the second purpose was undoubtedly very successful. The group of snakes on the opposite side has begun to become chaotic. Xu Shiqing tried her best to control it. But it still can't stop the snakes from killing each other. Su Zan hissed. The group of snakes behind him suddenly rushed towards the laser channel on the opposite side without fear of death. Even if there was an abyss in front of them, under Su Zan's control, they would not stop even half a step. Zzzz. The sound of laser burning and cutting is extremely harsh. Venomous snakes were cut into pieces. Su Zan stared closely at the passage in front of him, constantly searching for the trajectory of the laser cutting in his mind. This trajectory seemed random, but in fact there was also a pattern. It just requires powerful computing power. But this is trivial to Su Zan's incredible understanding. The snakes let their flesh find a way for Su Zan, and the flesh and blood were laid from the entrance to the end of the passage. Finally, his pupils lit up with an astonishing brilliance, and his body suddenly shrank, like a bolt of lightning rushing towards the passage. Xu Shiqing kept watching. After seeing this scene, I couldn't help being shocked. She was not shocked that Su Zan could shrink her body, which she already knew through various intelligence, but was shocked that Su Zan dared to break into the laser channel so directly. She originally thought that this cunning python would slowly think of other ways. According to her speculation, this laser can completely cut open Su Zan's body. At least it was a serious injury. But she doesn't know. Su Zan didn't want to waste time. Whoosh! The black lightning-like body rushed towards the distance. In Su Zan's mind, the trajectory of the laser seemed to be predicted in advance. In Xu Shiqing's horrified eyes, Su Zan's movements were like a perfect picture scroll. He was almost flashing along the cutting path of the laser, accurate to every millisecond. Su Zan was extremely calm. The scorching laser swept across his scales, unable to shake him in the slightest. Monster. You are a monster. Xu Shiqing staggered back, the enthusiasm just now disappeared, and fear crept into her heart again, as if she had a split personality. Originally based on her plan, the laser channel in front of her was enough to delay her for a long time. With this time, she could prepare more trump cards. But now, everything happened so incredibly. She even had the randomness of the laser. If she wanted to deduce its trajectory, it would only be possible with the base's most powerful computer. However, a giant python actually calculated it with the naked eye. This is simply more terrifying than Suzanne's physical resistance to the laser. Shock filled her brain, but when that terrifying figure actually passed through the laser channel and appeared on the other side, the shock completely transformed into fear. Suzanne's cold and majestic abdominal rumble slowly sounded. As you wish, I'm here. Suzanne looked at everything in front of him. Surprised in my heart. The layout here is somewhat different from what Xu Shiqing showed through video projection. Originally here, it is a vast hall that stores liquid column cabins, and inside are mutant snakes. But now, the liquid column tank disappeared, the original hall disappeared, and there was not even a human being in sight. What appeared in front of Suzanne was a bottomless pool of water, as if the sea water had been drawn from somewhere, and it was completely here, submerged. Suzanne's pupils narrowed slightly. It feels a little weird here. Logically speaking, although he killed many guards and scientific researchers at the base, there should be a lot left in the third level. How could there be only Xu Shiqing left? In the center of the pool, a platform connects to the second floor, seemingly leading directly to the bottom of the water. Xu Shiqing landed on a giant python that was more than 10 meters tall. Before Suzanne rushed through the laser channel, she was already standing on the platform. At this time, the cannibalism of the evolutionary snakes is over. Have to say, Xu Shiqing's research over the years still has something to offer. Suzanne's snake control skills could only wrest control of some of the weaker snakes from her hands, so the evolved snakes controlled by Suzanne were quickly slaughtered. The remaining evolutionary snakes were all in the Yuten, with their heads held high, looking at Suzanne ferociously, and constantly swallowing snake messages. They guard Xu Shiqing in the center. The scene was horrific. The mutated snakes Suzanne had seen before were all among them. Multiple heads, multiple tails, mechanical armor on the body, sharp claws on the abdomen, glowing bodies, all kinds of strange snakes can be found here. Maybe their individual strength is not particularly exaggerated, but they are all or more or at least have some special abilities. This is almost all the results of Xu Shiqing's research over the years. Suzanne knows. These evolutionary snakes are Xu Shiqing's final trump card. He stared at Xu Shiqing indifferently and said in a dull voice. You just hope that these weak losers can stop me. Xu Shiqing's face was slightly pale, still immersed in the shock brought by Suzanne just now. The terrifying computing power frightened her. As a scientist in the biological field, she knew how terrifying it was. This moment, she was finally shaken. Is this really an existence that can be created by my diluted genetic snake food? Previously, she always thought that Suzanne was a super-evolved snake that she accidentally created, but now, she really hesitated. Hey Emperor, what are your origins? Xu Shiqing stared closely at the dark giant python, wondering if she would have a chance to get the answer. She knows. If you can't survive today's crisis, then it will have no meaning in the future. Talk about the future. There has to be a future. Now, it's just a last-ditch fight. Xu Shiqing took a deep breath, smiled, and truly put life and death out of her mind. She smiled and said, Hey Emperor, you will know if my babies can stop you. Besides, you don't think this is my last trump card, do you? If you have the guts, just come over. She shouted coldly. The crazy thoughts in her mind finally couldn't be suppressed. At this moment, she couldn't care about so much anymore. Either succeed, or fail. There are only two ways. If you succeed, you live, if you fail, you die, that's all. Think so. She gradually became calm and just sat on the floor so calmly. She even took out a cigarette from somewhere and slowly lit it. As for Suzanne's invisible backside, with a tap of her right hand, she finally pressed a button quietly. Under the secrecy, irreversible changes are taking place. Suzanne looked at Xu Shiqing's provocation and ignored it. The deep pool of seawater in front of us is indeed a bit strange, but that's all. He is confident in his own strength and can push through anything. After the body size increased to the terrifying level of 25 meters, there were very few species in nature that were enemies of Suzan. Even many human thermal weapons were ineffective against Suzan. Opening the python's mouth, terrifying screaming sound waves came out. Hiss! Suzan's eyes were cold, and he swung his body and headed towards the deep pool to kill. Waves of sound waves echoed, and screams were heard everywhere on the third floor of the underground base. Xu Shiqing couldn't help showing a look of pain even though she was protected. The giant python in front of her was really too scary. And the deep pool under your feet stirred up pillars of water. Some weaker evolved snakes soared into the sky with the water column, and when they fell, they turned into snake corpses and slowly sank toward the depths of the pool. The blood began to spread. This sonic vibration actually shattered the livers of many weak evolutionary snakes, which was extremely terrifying. Xu Shiqing's face couldn't help but tighten. Although she had no hope that these mutated snakes could defeat the Black Emperor, the longer they could block him, the better. Suzan doesn't care about this. Seeing those ferocious mutated snakes entangled towards him, his ferocity was also aroused. A black python that was more than 10 meters long was entangled towards Suzan. Its body was covered with iron armor, and its head was even opened with dense fangs, gnawing at Suzan. Suzan's body swam into the deep pool, just like a dragon swimming into the sea. His speed became even faster. The heart beats, the strength spurts out wildly, the python's tail swings in the water, causing violent waves. Hua Jin bursts out at will, possessing unparalleled power. Bang! A dull sound came. The armored black python was no match at all. The strength of the two sides was not at the same level at all. The densely packed fangs were whipped away before they even had time to leave marks on Suzan's scales. Even the armor can't stop Suzan's burst of strength. Being violently whipped and exploded. The black python was cut into 2 pieces, and clouds of blood mist exploded. Xu Shiqing's eyes narrowed, full of shock. This time, Suzan didn't hide. She finally saw clearly. Chinese martial arts. That is the power of Chinese martial arts. As the legitimate daughter of the Xu family from a family of martial arts, how could she not recognize such an obvious burst of energy? She had clearly reached the state of transforming energy. Her talent in martial arts is actually not weak either. If she hadn't failed in the competition with her sister, she might have been able to reach the realm of Huajin or even Danjin. But what she saw still left her speechless. A giant python that knows martial arts. And it has reached such a profound level. This moment. All the mysteries are solved. Why didn't his second uncle and Li Wanshan come back? How could they come back after encountering such a powerful giant python? He speaks human words, is as smart as a demon, and can even practice Chinese martial arts to such a high level. Hey Emperor, what kind of existence are you? Xu Shiqing's heart was trembling. Looking at Suzan who was killing violently, she was stunned. Only then did she realize it. I didn't understand the giant python in front of me at all. I thought I was in control of everything every time, but in the end, my understanding was broken and I was slapped in the face every time. My plan. Can it really work? She really wanted to pass on the latest information about the Black Emperor, but at this time the base had been completely cut off from the outside world, and she was the only one who knew about the extraordinary things about the Black Emperor. Xu Shiqing was frightened and confused. But Suzan will not give her any more time to be confused. He had fought until his eyes were red. Mutated snakes rushed towards him without fear of death, trying to delay his steps, but they were basically killed instantly. The only effect was to slow down his approach to the center. Snake corpses continued to sink to the bottom of the tan. The blood has completely dyed Yutan red, turning red. Suzan vaguely noticed something strange. But there is no extra thought to think about this at the moment. He has gone crazy. The python's tail whips, the fangs gnaw, and the python's body collides. Suzan is like a killing machine, which is terrifying. He was so happy in his heart. This is the first time I've killed so happily. The ferocity of the beast was completely aroused, and he even felt that his God was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye, and he seemed to have some realization. Want to be promoted to Danjin. It means that the essence, energy, and spirit must be concentrated to a point that can be integrated with the acquired energy in the body, thereby achieving the unity of heaven and man. This is why those with strong elixir power are called heavenly beings. Jing refers to Yuan Jing, which is the abundant vitality of flesh and blood. Su Zan is not worried about this. Qi does not refer to acquired qi, but to strength, and he is not worried either. And the God refers to the spiritual God. This is something Su Zan has been exploring. Now I finally fully understand. Follow your heart. Then the spiritual spirit can increase significantly. Therefore, many human masters will do all kinds of incredible things in order to break through to the elixir. For example, some people will suddenly become greedy for money and lust, some people will start to act chivalrously, and some people will live in seclusion in the mountains. It's all because I want to follow my heart. Su Zan has known this for a long time, but the difficulty lies in how to find his true heart. He wanted to improve quickly, but he was unable to do so. It turns out that I was going in the wrong direction all along. My original intention is to pursue the way to become a true dragon, but also to kill. Reborn as a snake, even if Su Zan has a human soul, he will inevitably become more ferocious and ferocious. Now he can be called a ferocious beast. Killing is his instinct. Although there had been hunting before, it had never been as enjoyable as today. Kill all the way. He finally realized it. For a moment, a lot of spiritual light condensed in his mind, and the theories he got from Xu Zonggang and the two finally turned into his own spiritual God improvement method. You are trapped in boundless killing, and you see your true intention clearly in the killing. You combine the theory of Danjin promotion to create a method to improve the spiritual God, the method of killing and concentrating the mind. Close black lens bracket. Killing concentration technique. It is through killing that you can improve your spirituality. If, originally, the spiritual God's improvement speed was 1, but after creating the killing concentration method, the speed of improvement is 100. Even more. Su Zan couldn't help but look up to the sky and hiss, laughing happily in his heart. As long as all three of your Jing, Qi and Shen meet the standards, you can try to integrate Jing, Qi and Shen into one, thus integrating the acquired Qi in your body and stepping into Danjin. This day, it's not too far away. According to Xu Zonggang and the two of them, the most difficult thing to improve in the Dharma ending era is the spiritual God, so even the Danjin heavenly beings are very few in this era. And Su Zan has already found the right path. This unexpected gain made him extremely excited. Xu Shiqing looked at the giant python that kept killing people, and felt terrified in her heart. Looking at the excited look of the giant python, she couldn't help cursing in her heart, what a terrible monster. Su Zan was even more excited to kill. He completely let go of his scruples, and these obstacles in front of him no longer made him irritated. In his eyes, these were excellent nutrients for improving his spirituality. The poisonous fog spread. The mutated snakes were corroded and hissed in pain, and then they were violently whipped to death. Su Zan's spirit grew rapidly. Perception has also been greatly improved. He vaguely sensed that there were inexplicable changes taking place under the pool, but the beast's intuition told him that the changes seemed not only not dangerous but actually beneficial to him. He just stood still. Su Zan glanced at Xu Shiqing in the distance and knew that this might be the other party's last resort. He sneered in his heart. He began the final clearing. A violent killing spree. Almost all the evolved snakes had completely turned into snake corpses and sank to the bottom of the tunnel. Everything was completely soaked in blood. Neither blood nor brutality could describe what was in front of them. Even Xu Shiqing, who has always been used to seeing all kinds of disgusting scenes. At this time, everyone could not help but look pale and started to retching. She looked at Su Zan, her previous enthusiasm was completely gone. At this moment, she wanted to kill this monster right away. Such a monster is simply beyond her control. Endless regret arose in Xu Shiqing's heart, and she thought that if she had sent all the firepower to attack when she first learned of the existence of the giant python, the outcome might not have been like this. Pity. There is no regret medicine in life. And she knew that even if it happened again, she wouldn't pay attention to it at first and would only think about catching the Black Emperor. Maybe this is human nature. Xu Shiqing smiled bitterly. She watched the last evolved python being exploded by Suzan and sinking to the bottom of the tunnel, and couldn't help but sigh. Hey Emperor, I have always underestimated you and overestimated myself. I paid the price for my arrogance. Suzan also gradually stopped. He stretched his body that was a little tight due to the crazy killing, and looked at Xu Shiqing in the distance. Up to now, this woman has not broken down yet. Suzan somewhat admired her spirit. Most people would have been unable to withstand such a huge pressure and would have suffered a nervous breakdown when encountering such a terrifying scene. He didn't respond, just watched indifferently. He was slowly adapting to his spiritual power, which had increased several times. That powerful perception makes him even more powerful, but it still takes a little time to get used to it. Xu Shiqing had already stood up, and she did not give Suzan a chance to get closer. She took a deep puff of the cigarette in her hand and finished the last bit. In just one cigarette, Suzan slaughtered all the evolutionary snakes. It was really terrifying. Xu Shiqing's body gradually trembled, not from fear, but from a kind of madness. I paid the price of blood. But, I don't accept it. I, Xu Shiqing, am the daughter of the Xu family. In order to regain my glory, I even cooperated with those disgusting things in Sakura country. How could I lose at your hands? Hey Emperor, you are very strong. But if you want to kill me, Xu Shiqing, just like that. No way. Her voice was shrill, like a ghost. While screaming, she pressed the button in her hand hard. Suzan's body that was swimming forward suddenly stopped, and in an instant, he felt an extremely huge suction force coming from underneath him. The spirit was shaken. Suzan exploded with strength, the python's tail flapped violently, and he jumped out of the mirage and then landed on the edge. And at this time, in the center of the Yuden, a huge vortex has taken shape. Suzan could feel the violent suction even on the shore. It was a strange phenomenon caused by the sudden discharge of water. This seawater secluded pool is indeed artificially created. At this time, as Xu Shiqing pressed the control button, the blood pool moved to an unknown place, and the full picture of Tandi was suddenly revealed. It was a metal platform hundreds of meters deep. The liquid column tanks that Suzan had seen before were placed in an orderly manner. Pipes connected them one by one, and finally led to the central one, which was huge. Incomparable cabin. Suzan's eyes narrowed. In the cabin, the blood-colored liquid was rolling and the bubbles were boiling crazily. A huge creature with a fierce aura was slowly opening its eyes. The cabin was sunk deeper, and the whole thing couldn't be seen, but the section of light that came out was already over 10 meters. You can imagine how huge the entire cabin is. The entire cabin was filled with blood-colored liquid, completely covering up the huge thing inside, making it impossible to see its true face, but Suzan sensed a familiar smell in it. Gene fluid. Incomparably rich genetic fluid. Not only that, but the snake corpses just now were turned into minced flesh and blended into it. It even seems that there are many other substances that have been put into it. It's like a hodgepodge. They were all absorbed by that unknown behemoth. Hiss. A hoarse roar came faintly from the cabin, carrying an extremely cruel murderous intent, a sense of irrational chaos. Suzan's pupils stared. He vaguely understood what Xu Shiqing's final trump card was. At this time, the birth of the behemoth has reached the final critical moment and is irreversible. It is impossible for Suzan to stop it even if he wants to. But, he had no intention of stopping it. Although Suzan felt a pressure from the behemoth that had not yet appeared, he still had full confidence. Until now, he had not used his full strength and was not panicking at all. And, the birth of this behemoth may not be a good thing for him. So, he won't stop. He stared quietly, as if shocked. But in fact, he was constantly observing the changes happening underneath, and auras of light began to rise in his mind. At the same time, Xu Shiqing's crazy voice echoed throughout the third floor of the underground base, and her sharp laughter was extremely harsh. She looked at the bloody liquid tumbling inside the capsule and the behemoth that occasionally showed a corner. The fervor in her eyes had reached a peak, and she couldn't help but kneel down on her knees and wrap her arms around the sky. Hey Emperor, you didn't expect it, you didn't expect me to have such a trump card. You must be curious, why am I the only one on the third floor? It's simple, because they have become the nutrients for its transformation. Xu Shiqing showed her white teeth, and the words she spoke made people feel chills all over her body. I have been making preparations since I took over this base. My goal has never been to create so-called mutated snakes like those wastes just now. The only purpose of this underground base is to create a powerful being like Yamata no Orochi, a creature that can even withstand nuclear weapons. But it was really too difficult. These weak snakes couldn't carry such powerful power. Until you appeared. Your appearance gave me hope. Hey Emperor, I once told you that I wanted you to become a great being like the legendary Yamata no Orochi, but unfortunately, you are not willing. You missed a great opportunity. You forced me to do all this. Xu Shiqing's eyes were full of resentment. She was thinking. If we take Black Emperor's body full of potential as a basis and combine it with her research results, the possibility of recreating the mythical Yamata no Orochi will definitely be greatly improved. But Black Emperor was not only unwilling. Instead, he chose to attack the base. From the moment she learned that Suzan had begun to attack the base, Xu Shiqing knew that the base's defense power would most likely be unstoppable. So, she made up her mind and chose a dangerous move. Start the Yamata no Orochi plan in advance. All the conditions were not yet mature, and the success rate was horribly low. She originally thought she would have at least half a day to prepare, but Suzan passed the laser tunnel beyond her imagination, leaving Xu Shiqing with only one choice left. A desperate attempt. Based on her most powerful evolved python, she launched the irreversible Yamata no Orochi plan. She devoted all the resources of this underground base to create an unprecedentedly powerful and fierce creature. Although it may not reach the level of the legendary Yamata no Orochi, it is still absolutely powerful. Hey Emperor, I would also like to thank you. If you hadn't slaughtered so many evolutionary snakes and let their blood and corpses help me, I might not have succeeded. Xu Shiqing kept laughing wildly. I succeeded. I won the bet. Hey Emperor, prepare to face your fear. She was laughing wildly, coughing constantly, and her eyes were full of chilling enthusiasm. She was already a complete madman. Suzan's eyes were cold. He just watched this crazy woman's performance indifferently from beginning to end. From her crazy words, Suzan finally understood the whole story. Didn't you see a figure? It turns out that they have all become nutrients for the evil creatures in this cabin. No wonder the snake corpses were quietly sinking towards the bottom of the tan during the killing. It turned out that this was also the reason. The rich genetic fluid evolved into snake corpses one by one. Everything turned into nutrients for the growth of this monster. Not only was Suzan not panicked, but she was looking forward to it. Such a ferocious thing that combines all the energy. If it can be swallowed up, I don't know how terrifying growth I can get. To know. Now the genetic fluid is becoming less and less useful to Suzan. Suzan needs higher level energy. The unknown creature at the moment played a very good cohesion role. The originally complex genetic fluid, evolved snakes and various energies were all integrated into one by it. In other words, in Suzan's eyes, this unknown creature was no different from a powerful elixir. And that so-called transformation process. It's like refining an elixir. Therefore, Suzan had no idea of stopping it from beginning to end. This is a good thing for him, a huge good thing. Xu Shiqing, what a good person. He laughed wildly for the first time, and his majestic and domineering laughter overshadowed Xu Shiqing's madness. Meet my own fears. Xu Shiqing, you know nothing about my power. For the first time, he showed off his own edge without any concealment. That kind of confidence and dominance made Xu Shiqing tremble. She shook her head instinctively and said sharply, "Hey Emperor, don't try to deceive me with your cheap lies. I won't be fooled. Since you don't give up, let me see the real evil thing. Come out, my Red King." She lowered her body and looked at the underground cabin, as if praying. Bang! As she finished speaking, a clear voice suddenly sounded, which was particularly clear. A faint crack appeared on the cabin. Bang 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 bang. In an instant, an extremely dense and clear sound rang out. There were dense cracks on the cabin, and an extremely fierce aura gradually filled the underground space. Boom! With an extremely violent explosion, the cabin exploded instantly, and the extremely pale blood-colored liquid gushed out crazily. Roar! Bloodthirsty and sharp roars sounded at the same time. Not a sound. But there were three sounds, and they were three completely different sounds, as if they were not made by the same creature. Suzanne's eyes narrowed. Just saw it. A fierce and ferocious creature exuding a bloodthirsty and brutal aura rushed out of the broken cabin. The whole picture was displayed in front of Suzanne and Xu Shiqing. The creature in front of you. It has the shape of a giant python, and its body is nearly 30 meters long. It is even more terrifying than Suzanne, but this is not the most important thing. The key is, this creature. There are actually 3 heads and 6 tails. There are 3 ferocious python heads. The one in the middle is red, the one on the left is black, and the one on the right is blue. The mouth of the python is full of fangs, which is extremely scary. And the 6 thick python tails kept swinging and swaying behind them, making deep pits from time to time, which made people feel heartbroken. The armored snake scales all over it shone brightly. This is not a monster that should exist in nature at all. This is the creation of technology. An existence that shouldn't exist. The giant python with 3 heads and 6 tails in front of him kept hissing wildly, filled with a feeling of violent chaos. If it weren't for the red head in the middle having a certain amount of wisdom. I'm afraid the 3 heads will bite each other directly. Is this, the so-called Yamata no Orochi plan? Have to say, Suzanne somewhat admired Xu Shiqing. In the age of the end of the law, such a terrifying monster can be created. I am afraid that the so-called Wajan masters of mankind will be crushed at will in front of this monster, and even tanks and armored vehicles will be ignored. Perhaps, to a certain extent, this evil creature is even more terrifying than Dan Jin Tianren. But there was no fear or panic in his eyes. Instead, there was tremendous excitement. The monster becomes more powerful. After he swallowed it, his growth became even more amazing. Unimaginable. If he swallows it, what kind of terrifying growth will he get, 10 meters or even 20 meters? Suzanne couldn't help but swallow. Look at the Red King in front of you. It's like looking at a delicious meal. This creature gathers all the energy into one, which will save him too much time and make it more efficient. To him, it is absolutely a treasure. No wonder his instincts told him this was a good thing for him. Suzanne was thankful. Fortunately, I chose to trust my animal instincts and did not forcefully stop it when I noticed something strange. Otherwise, I would regret it and miss the opportunity. Although it may take some effort, it is totally worth it. Scattered energy is definitely not as good as this integrated energy, and it takes more time to digest. Suzanne was already excited. This time I broke into the underground base, and I didn't expect such unexpected gains. As for being unable to defeat the monster in front of you, he just smiled slightly in his heart. And Xu Shiqing. The enthusiasm in his eyes reached its peak after the monster appeared. Black Emperor, have you seen it? This is my Red King. It is far from reaching the peak of Yamata no Orochi. It is rumored that Yamata no Orochi, 8 heads and 8 tails, each have magical powers. The Red King's limit is only here, but your limit is much stronger than him. Submit to me, I will forget the past and take you to the top of the world. Quote. There are already successful examples in front of you, what are you waiting for? She yelled wildly. The self-confidence reached its peak again after the terrifying monster appeared in front of him. She couldn't even resist recruiting Suzanne again. All the time, she is constantly experimenting with creating multi-headed snakes and multi-tailed snakes, and is constantly selecting suitable carriers to carry the power of multi-headed and multi-tailed snakes. The original Red King was the only king-shaped mutant snake with simple wisdom. These creatures with 3 heads and 6 tails used the Red King as a carrier to graft other evolved pythons, and finally succeeded in creating the terrifying beast in front of them. But after Suzanne appeared in her sight, the Red King has become so inconspicuous. If possible, she still hopes to use the Black Emperor as a carrier to carry out the plan to recreate Yamata no Orochi. Now that she has successful examples, she is confident that she will definitely do better next time. Although this time was a coincidence, various data have been recorded, which also has great reference value. Xu Shiqing looked at Suzanne expectantly, waiting for Suzanne's reply. In her opinion, the goddess of luck is on her side, allowing her to complete this extremely low probability plan in a desperate situation, which means that she, Xu Shiqing, will continue to create miracles. But a trace of sarcasm gradually appeared in Suzanne's pupils. The path you want to pursue. It's a real dragon. The so-called Yamata no Orochi is really not even worthy of carrying his own shoes. At this time, the Red King's transformation has ended, and Suzanne does not need to wait any longer. What should I do after successfully refining the elixir? Naturally take the elixir. Although the elixir in front of him was not so obedient and required a lot of effort, Suzanne didn't mind. Just right. You can show your strength for the first time. He suddenly laughed wildly, his laughter full of domineering and coldness. How can a sparrow know the ambition of a swan? I told you, you know nothing about my power. Next moment. She stopped talking nonsense, and her body suddenly ejected, rushing towards the vicious creature like black lightning. Xu Shiqing was furious. At this time, you still have to speak harshly and don't understand the current situation. Black Emperor, it seems that your wisdom is not as high as I thought. Red King, show this idiot your power. Let him despair. She blew her special whistle. The ferocious creatures with 3 heads and 6 tails suddenly looked up to the sky and roared. The 3 ferocious heads all looked at Suzanne, who was rushing over. Although they were still a little confused, they obviously knew who their opponent was. Next moment, in Xu Shiqing's shocked eyes, 2 ferocious giant pythons collided together. Boom! The dull sound of the collision of flesh and blood echoed on the 3rd floor of the underground base, just like high-speed trains colliding together. The power was extremely terrifying. Xu Shiqing could feel the fluctuations of power coming from the high platform. The body is a little unsteady. She looked at what was happening in front of her in shock. I saw that the giant python creature with 3 heads and 6 tails flew out after being hit. In terms of strength, it was actually suppressed by the Black Emperor. How is this possible? She couldn't believe her eyes. The Red King is nearly 30 meters tall and has 3 heads and 6 tails. In terms of overall size, it is probably several times that of Suzanne. She originally thought the situation should be a one-sided crushing. But the reality was obviously different from what she imagined. Guoshu. It's the power of Guoshu. That's right, Black Emperor has cultivated national arts and reached the state of transforming energy. Even though his physical strength is not as good as Red King's, his burst of energy and the impact he displays surpasses Red King's. Xu Shiqing reacted instantly. But she wasn't too alarmed. The Black Emperor has national skills, but the Red King also has a trump card. Roar! The 3 ferocious heads of the Red King roared together, and everyone could feel the rage and murderous intent in it. This terrifying creature was grafted from multiple giant pythons. It was already extremely chaotic. If the head in the middle had not controlled everything with simple wisdom, it would have started killing each other, but even so, it was still full of ferocity. But now, he was hit by another giant python and flew back. How could it possibly endure such humiliation? The huge pupils were already stained with bloodlust. The Red King roared, and the 6 snake tails swiped towards Suzanne. Like 6 extremely thick armored steel whips, they flew in the air with terrifying force, causing a shrill whine of wind that made people's scalp numb. Suzanne's eyes also flashed with violence. His ferocity was also aroused. The heart began to beat violently, and the extremely rich vitality gushed out in the python's body. For the first time, the strength exploded without reservation, and his python's tail also twitched angrily. The python tail covered with blood-stained black scales and the 6 armored python tails struck each other in the air. A total of 7 python tails were fighting. The scene was no less shocking than any special effects blockbuster. The howling of the wind and the crackling sound of sound explosions were endless. From time to time, the scales were shattered. The whining wind and dull crashing sounds made people's scalp numb. Pity. Only Xu Shiqing could see such a shocking scene. She was completely stunned. How could the Black Emperor be so powerful? This is not inferior to the Danjin Heavenly Man of Dragon Kingdom. Xu Shiqing could not imagine it. This turned out to be the result of Black Emperor never undergoing any evolutionary experiments. How is it possible? I know the strength of the Red King best. Its scales, combined with the research results of the armored python, are strong enough to withstand most thermal weapons. The strength of his body can blast tanks and armored vehicles, not to mention all kinds of. The special thing is that even the powerful gods and humans have to surrender in front of the Red King at this time. But why can't you suppress the Black Emperor? This guy is so cunning. You never know where his limit is. However, the Red King is far more powerful than that. Xu Shiqing's eyes were full of fear. In front of you. The fight between the two vicious creatures is particularly shocking. Xu Shiqing was dazzled by what she saw. She just knew. Even when he was slaughtering the snakes just now, the Black Emperor did not use all his strength. 7 thick python tails intertwined in the air and struck each other. Their scales exploded and flesh and blood flew everywhere. With Su Zan's powerful body, the defense of the scales was broken through for the first time. It must be said that the strength of this Red King is indeed good, and it can be regarded as the most powerful opponent Su Zan has encountered so far. But obviously, Su Zan's scale armor defense is even better. The secret technique of flesh, scales and armor cannot be concealed. His outer armor was only ripped into pieces, while the Red King opposite had his flesh and blood ripped away in pieces. The so-called iron armor was not enough in front of Su Zan. Su Zan's python was 1 against 6, and he was not losing at all. He has reached the state of energy transformation, and every blow is blessed with abundant energy. When he comes into contact with the Red King's python tail, there is even more energy spurting out, and the lethality is much more terrifying. Xu Shiqing seemed to be equally matched between the two, but in fact it was the Red King who suffered the most. It was just 6 python tails that kept lashing out, showing an extremely strong offensive momentum. But Su Zan obviously doesn't just want to be satisfied with this. Hiss. His python mouth hissed, and terrifying and sharp sound waves came out. Circles of ripples that were almost visible to the naked eye spread from the air. They were not the manifestation of sound waves, but an abnormal phenomenon formed after the air was shaken. The ground was shaken. The vicious creature on the other side obviously moved a little slower. There was a ferocious look in Su Zan's eyes. He seized the opportunity, and the speed of his tail suddenly increased, and he lashed towards the connection point between the Red King's body and tail, like a thick black lightning, full of power. He is not a beast that just relies on instinct to fight like the opponent. He has been observing just now. Although the 6 python tails of the monster opposite are very fierce, and they strike one after another like a dragnet, it also has a fatal weakness, that is, the connection is too fragile. After all, this is a monster catalyzed by technological means. Where can I compare to Su Zan? The joints between the 6 python tails seemed a little stiff every time they turned, which was not at the same level as Su Zan's flexibility. At this time, Su Zan just seizes the opportunity. The black python's tail snapped straight, like a giant sword slashing towards the connection point. Xu Shiqing's expression changed in shock. I can only watch this incident happen suddenly. She couldn't get involved in such a battle. Roar. An unpleasant and piercing roar of pain sounded, and along with the spurts of blood, a python tail was forcibly severed from the joint, and the 6-tailed python turned into 5 tails in an instant. I saw an extremely violent look emerging from the black python-headed pupil on the left. This python's tail is obviously controlled by it. At this time, the pain of tail cutting has completely plunged it into a state of violent chaos, and even the dominant red python head in the middle cannot be restrained. A sharp and harsh hissing sound sounded. I saw the black python head on the left suddenly split open its mouth, and a burst of smelly brown poisonous mist spurted out, shrouding Su Zan on the opposite side, making a sizzling sound while it was still spreading in the air, which made people's scalp tingling. Xu Shiqing was shocked. The legendary Yamata no Orochi has 8 heads and 8 tails. Each head has supreme magical powers. Naturally, the 3 heads of the Red King cannot be displayed. The red head in the middle is a symbol of wisdom and the leader of everything. The head on the left can spit poisonous mist. This is combined with the characteristics of the most powerful poisonous python I have ever created. This poisonous mist can easily corrode hard alloys. Black Emperor, enjoy it. A trace of excitement emerged in her heart. It's like seeing your work glow. However, the next moment, she was shocked suddenly, with an incredible look in her eyes. I saw a hint of sarcasm visible to the naked eye in the eyes of the Black Emperor python opposite. Su Zan looked at the poisonous mist. There was no fluctuation in my heart. 4 words. Do whatever you want. The several snake evolution secrets he created are extremely powerful secrets. The flesh and blood scales have already demonstrated its powerful defense. Now, it is the turn of the suffocating poison to show off. Suzanne's python's mouth also split to an exaggerated extent. The huge poison sac in the body was squeezed with all its strength for the first time. In a flash, the terrifying black poisonous mist spat out from Suzanne's mouth. The unprecedented strong smell could be clearly smelled by Xu Shiqing in the distance, and she couldn't help but feel a little dizzy. She looked on in horror. Just saw it. The black poisonous mist covered the brown poisonous mist at an alarming speed. The brown poisonous mist that originally looked numb to the scalp melted like ice and snow, as if a lower-ranking person met a higher-ranking person. The black poisonous mist fell on half of the Red King's body at an alarming speed. Especially the black python head, because of its rashness, was given special attention. Zzzz. The scalp-numbing corrosive sound continued to echo in the underground space. Xu Shiqing felt that her heart was itching. The sound was like a devil's whisper, gnawing at her heart and her newly rising self-confidence. Her face turned pale again at a speed visible to the naked eye. The Red King let out a manic roar of pain. There was a strong corroding and burning feeling everywhere on the body. The iron armor melted away, revealing bright red flesh and blood, which was then continued to be corroded by the power of the poisonous mist. The pain was like Ling Kai. Especially the black python head. His eyes were burned and he kept swaying painfully, making the Red King's body lose control of his balance. Naturally, Suzanne would not miss this rare opportunity. The killing concentration technique operated silently, and such a fierce killing battle caused his spirit that had just gradually calmed down to begin to soar again at an alarming speed. His perception is extremely sharp. The heart beats, the strength surges, and the body shoots with electricity. For the first time, he went all out and fought in close quarters. The long and thick python tail whipped out at an astonishing speed, wrapping around the black python head on the left while the Red King was in chaos. The python's tail tightens, and double strength explodes. Death Stranding. Suzanne rarely uses this move now, but there is no doubt about its power. Facing a monster like the Red King, Suzanne will not underestimate him. Although he is confident that he will be the final winner, he will also use all his strength to go. A huge force exploded, accompanied by an earth-shaking roar of pain. The head of the black python on the left was cut off by force, falling to the ground and rolling over. Blood was constantly sputtering like a fountain. For such a huge creature, even a small wound would be a huge amount of blood, let alone such a serious injury. The strong smell of blood permeated the entire underground space. The broken python head is still struggling with the remaining vitality, but it is no longer possible to bring it back to life. After all, this is just a monster catalyzed by technology, not a great demon with various magical powers in myths and legends. Suzanne looked up to the sky and hissed, his excitement and violence clearly revealed. This kind of battle made him extremely excited, and the bellicosity deep in his blood was fully revealed. The Red King suffered unprecedented heavy losses. After removing one head and one tail, it has changed from the original 3 heads and 6 tails to 2 heads and 5 tails. There is even one tail that has become a little out of control due to the death of the black python head. This huge beast kept hissing in pain. The pupils of the remaining 2 heads were bloodshot, and they had completely fallen into a state of madness. Xu Shiqing was completely sluggish. Her hands and feet were cold and her eyes were full of disbelief. She couldn't imagine that Suzanne was so powerful. How is it possible? How is it possible? Why is it so powerful? My Yamata no Orochi, my Red King, how could I be defeated? It was almost a one-sided crushing. It was completely different from what she had imagined. According to her script, everything in front of her should be reversed. What went wrong? Xu Shiqing looked at the crazy Red King, with the last trace of expectation deep in her eyes, but that expectation was not much. It could only be said to be her last hope and luck. Roar. The violent beast kept roaring, and it had completely lost its previous order. It was completely chaotic and lashing out. The 2 python heads kept biting, and the remaining 5 python tails lashed out randomly, and each pillar cabin was blown to pieces, each scientific research workbench was destroyed. Suzanne is very orderly. When he found an opportunity, he pulled out his tail again, and the less flexible python tail was cut off by its roots again. The Red King cuts off another tail. Blood mist filled the air. The already tragic underground space became even more tragic. But this time, Suzan suddenly felt a warning sign in his heart. He wanted to pull away, but he clearly felt something unusual. The redhead that had been in a state of madness actually showed a hint of consciousness. The python tail turned out to be a bait. This guy's combat intelligence is not low. It's been waiting for this perfect opportunity. Immediately afterwards, the remaining 4 python tails were winding towards Suzan at high speeds. Their purpose was not to strike, but to entangle. The power of the 4 python tails continued to tighten, which were 4 tough steel cables that forcibly wrapped around Suzan's python body. The original strength of the python lies in its entanglement. At this time, the strength of the 4 python tails was extremely strong, making Suzan they couldn't break free for a while. And those 2 ferocious heads roared fiercely and excitedly. The red python head is full of sharp serrated teeth, while the blue python head has a light that starts to flash in its mouth. Twists and turns. Xu Shiqing couldn't help shouting in excitement, her face was even flushed, and she couldn't help but wave her fists in excitement. This is her last hope. She didn't expect that the Red King's wisdom was higher than she imagined, or that his fighting instinct was higher than she imagined. He would use his own body as bait in exchange for this hard-won opportunity. The Red King has 3 heads, each performing its own duties. The black python head spits poisonous mist, the red head dominates wisdom and has a mouth full of fangs, and the blue head can release the thunder. Xu Shiqing laughed. She has always wanted to use technological means to recreate the magical powers of legendary beasts. Poison mist is one of them, and thunder is also one of them. Certainly. Not really controlling thunder, but terrifying high-voltage electricity. She studied various creatures in the ocean that can release high-voltage electricity, such as electric eels, electric catfishes, and electric rays. Finally, she got inspiration and built a similar structure in the body of a giant python, which could eventually spit out terrifying high-voltage electricity through the python's mouth. Electricity. Needless to say, this power is absolutely terrifying. But the disadvantages are also obvious. It takes a few seconds to recharge and can only spit once in a short period of time. Moreover, the distance is still a bit short, and it is easy to be distanced against high-speed moving targets. So, only then did the scene where the Red King did not hesitate to use his own body as bait. Only the python's tail locked Suzan's body tightly. Only this thunder breath can hit 100%, so it can be effective in one blow. This is Xu Shiqing's last hope and the Red King's last trump card. But even Xu Shiqing didn't expect it. The Red King in front of her could actually do this. She was already in despair, thinking that this move would be easily avoided by the Black Emperor. I never expected that happiness would come so suddenly. Hey Emperor, prepare to face death. Xu Shiqing roared. She no longer had the slightest idea of wanting Suzan to surrender. At this moment, she only had one idea, which was to kill Suzan quickly and end this terrible nightmare. Suzan's body was tightly wrapped. He stared at the blue head. Between the open mouth of the python, a terrifying voltage light began to flicker. The situation seems to be very critical. But no panic at all. On the contrary, he was very interested. If he could observe carefully, with his incredible understanding, he could imitate this organ to form the corresponding secret technique and release the thunder. This was why he was not in a hurry. With his incredible understanding, he can learn from all his opponents. So, is this your trump card? Suzan's faint laughter echoed in the underground space, so calm and composed that Xu Shiqing couldn't help but feel stunned. Next moment, the overbearing voice suddenly rose up. I told you, you know nothing about my power. Click, click, click. An extremely clear bone-crunching sound suddenly came from Suzan's body. Ruyi's body, the body expands. The next moment, a truly behemoth appeared in front of Xu Shiqing's eyes. What a terrifying creature this is. Huge, majestic, ferocious, and domineering. Xu Shiqing was completely suffocated. Her eyes were full of disbelief, as if she had seen the most ridiculous thing in the world, even though she was already in a state of shock today. But at this time, she was still inevitably shocked. How is this possible? The size of the creature that appeared in front of her reached a terrifying level of 50 meters. It may not make any sense to say 50 meters. But what if it is more than 10 stories high? What is the concept of a creature that can rival the height of more than 10 stories? This is a truly behemoth. A casual strike can cause the earth to shake. The thick python body, the thick and tough blood-patterned scales, the huge vertical pupils, everything tells the story of the power of this creature. The 30-meter-long Red King seemed to have turned into a small insect in front of the creature in front of him. In Xu Shiqing's trembling eyes, Su Zan shows his strongest posture unscrupulously. The Ruyi body originally created from Zhao Qinghei's secret technique of stacking bones has now been perfected to an extremely powerful level. If used for body expansion, it can fully double the size of Su Zan's body. This is also the origin of the terrifying creature that is 50 meters long in front of me. Actually, this is not the limit of the wishful body. However, the bigger the body is, the more it needs a powerful heart to support the movement of the body. If it is bigger and the heart and blood cannot support it, it is useless and becomes a burden. Now 50 meters tall, this is Su Zan's strongest form. At this moment, Su Zan can completely feel the abundant strength coming from up and down his body, which is several times stronger than when he was only 25 meters tall. He can feel it. By lashing the python tail at will, you can create terrifying pits. It is normal to blow up the alloy door just now. You don't even need the assistance of suffocating poison. This power is really fascinating. Su Zan was intoxicated. With a body of 50 meters, everything he looked at seemed extremely small. Xu Shiqing on the high platform in the distance was like an extremely weak ant looking at him in horror. The feeling of dominating everything makes Su Zan very satisfied. I really don't know how refreshing it would be if one day my body could truly reach 50 meters, and how terrifying my strength would be. He couldn't help but think. Although his body now reaches 50 meters. But in fact, it was achieved by using Ruyi's body, which is considered a trick. In fact, the strength of flesh, bones, heart, etc. is far different from that of a real 50-meter body. But, despite this, it's enough to cope with the situation at hand. Swallowing you will allow my body to take a big step toward 50 meters. Looking at the Red King who was also frightened in front of him, Su Zan couldn't help but grin in his heart. The Red King's intelligence is not low. It can completely sense the spread of the terrifying aura, and fear instinctively appears in its originally ferocious pupils. But it didn't back down. Knowing that this is the only chance, no matter how terrifying the creature in front of you is, you must continue. The arc light in the blue head has begun to flash. As long as it condenses for 2 seconds, the terrifying high-voltage electricity can spray away. By then, no matter how terrifying the creature in front of you is, it may be able to sever limb damage it. That's the simple idea of the Red King. But, will Su Zan agree? It's obviously impossible. 2 seconds is very short, but sometimes, it is just a celestial constellation. Su Zan stretched his body casually, and his slender and thick python body instantly burst out with terrifying strength. Just for a moment, the 4 python tails that were originally like 4 steel cables tightly holding Su Zan began to have terrifying cracks. The armor was shattered piece by piece. Flesh and blood were broken inch by inch. The power of terror makes this so-called confinement a complete joke. Bang! Only an extremely clear sound was heard. It's like glass breaking or a spring snapping. In Xu Shiqing's desperate eyes, the 4 python tails of the Red King were instantly broken open. 2 of the loose and slow ones were broken off violently, while the remaining 2 fast ones did not fare much better. Their scales were broken and exposed in red. Flesh and blood, traces of terror are revealed, looking particularly ferocious. No, it's not like that. Xu Shiqing shook her head wildly. Reluctance and despair were gnawing at her heart. She looked at the terrifying giant python in front of her. No, it even looked like a dragon in the legend of the Dragon Kingdom. Desperately powerful, she fell to her knees, her heart completely crushed. Su Zan glanced casually and looked at the blue head that was still struggling to swallow the lightning. Even though it was so severely injured, this ferocious python was still persisting in its fight. Have to say, the Red King's fighting will is quite good. Pity. It met Su Zan. Otherwise, even the Danjin heavenly man of the Dragon Kingdom would be devoured and slaughtered by it through so many methods. Little brother, what are you staring at? Are you dissatisfied? Suzan smiled jokingly in his heart. Absolute power gives him the confidence to control everything. The next moment, a cold light flashed in his pupils, and his huge head suddenly split open. Roar. The violent long hissing sound had vaguely evolved into some kind of unknown roar as the size of the body increased. An unprecedented terrifying sound wave suddenly vibrated towards the Red King on the opposite side. This terrifying sound wave destroyed everything. The surrounding metal bricks were violently thrown away, and each instrument exploded. The scene was terrifying, like the end of the world. Zzzz. In an instant, the sizzling sound of electricity continued to sound in the body under the blue head. The voltage blue light in his mouth, which was already on the verge of successfully condensing, began to flicker on and off. Finally, with a painful roar, it was completely extinguished. This sound wave, it actually prevented the voltage from condensing. Let it be stillborn. The last trump card was solved in this way. Xu Shiqing's body went limp and she collapsed completely to the ground, her face ashen. She was completely hopeless. I just feel like a clown, and all my jumping around is completely useless. Sonic vibration. The scales and armor on the Red King's body were blown off, and his flesh and blood were blurred. But the instinct of the beast still made it roar. You are not convinced, are you? You dare to grit your teeth, right? Suzan smiled disdainfully. The python tail struck hard at the red head full of fangs and grinning teeth with extremely domineering power. Bang! There was a loud noise. I saw that the red head was half blown open. A pair of sharp teeth were completely detached. Bloody and bloody. Still not convinced. Bang! Another tail was pulled out, and the two remaining pythons of the Red King were cut off again. With constant blows, blood and flesh flew everywhere. Seeing this extremely cruel scene, Xu Shiqing trembled even more. The cruelty of the Black Emperor in front of her was far beyond her imagination. She could tell just by looking at the miserable state of the Red King. Under the ground, there were stumps of body parts scattered everywhere. The blood mist filled the air, filled with the suffocating smell of blood. The two python heads, one black and one red, had their pupils widened and lifeless. The 6 python tails were broken and fell to the ground. The remaining vitality kept them twisting, but it was just the remaining neurons in the flesh and blood. As for the Red King, from the domineering appearance of 3 heads and 6 tails at the beginning, it has completely become a castrated monster with only 1 head and no tail. The appearance is really too miserable. But the Red King is still alive, which Suzan deliberately kept. He is neither slow nor slow. The huge body swam in front of the Red King. No matter how fierce the Red King was at this time, he could not help but instinctively feel fear. Although the blue head was not very intelligent and looked more like a beast, the beast also knew fear and fear. Suzan's eyes were dull. The python tail slowly exerted force and rolled up the Red King in midair. It was really easy for him to do this with his 50-meter body. The battle is over. The killing concentration technique gradually stopped operating, and the spiritual god increased again. Suzan was in a very good mood. Xu Shiqing's face was ashen. She didn't know what the Black Emperor, who was already the final winner, was doing. She looked at all this and just kept trembling. What happened today was beyond her comprehension. It was as if the nightmare that had always been there had finally come true. Suzan's horror was that she couldn't even imagine it. Suzan glanced at the high platform. I know that the crazy woman is at her wit's end. Ignoring it, if she makes the slightest move, Suzan's thunder blow will come. He has more important things to do now. Of course, it was not to torture the Red King. There was no point in killing a monster, but he was very interested in the high-voltage electricity that the blue head did not spit out just now. Just now. During the brewing process of the high-voltage electricity, even he felt a sense of palpitations in his heart. It was only when he displayed his wishful body that the sense of heart palpitations gradually disappeared. If he could learn it and turn it into his own power, it will definitely be better. Breathing thunder, just thinking about it makes Suzan excited. This is extremely feasible for Suzan. For example, the method of sonic vibration and ventriloquism were derived from his observation of the vocal vibrations of various animals. The wishful body was created by his observation of Zhao Qinghei's secret technique of stacking bones. Now that the opportunity is in front of him, he will naturally not miss it. The heart beats, and the banging sound can be heard vaguely in the underground space. It is dull and powerful, and the force is spurting out. It is the dark force that helps Su Zan sense the secret of the body under the Red King's blue head. He wanted to know, how does this blue head condense thunder and lightning so that it can be used for one's own purposes? Travel vigorously. All secrets are exposed in Su Zan's eyes. So this is awe. In his perception, the blue head is responsible for the body part. The muscle slices are densely arranged. Each muscle is very thin, but the number is huge, hundreds of thousands or even millions, carrying bioelectricity fluctuations, like small batteries. They are arranged in an orderly manner, with a certain pattern, and can even increase each other's strength. This is very similar to the principle of electric eel discharge, but it is particularly clever. Xu Shiqing's research results are not fake. It is precisely because of this that the blue head of the Red King can emit terrifying high-voltage electric rays. However, precisely because of this, the disadvantages are also obvious. It requires charging once it is released, and the energy storage time is very long. Su Zan became excited. In his mind, auras of spiritual light began to flash, and his heaven-defying understanding came into play. Using it, he almost quickly thought of how to apply it to his body. He rolled the python's tail and kept tightening it. Pointing the dying blue head at the metal wall, he wanted it to release voltage and see the whole process. The blue head sensed what Su Zan meant, it roared, and the blue arc began to shine in its mouth again. This time, Su Zan did not interrupt. Instead, he is constantly sensing the operating principle of the muscle slices. The aura in his mind became more and more powerful. Su Zan's pupils became brighter and brighter. Zilla. As a creepy sizzling sound resounded through the underground space, the Red King's high-voltage electric rays appeared in the world for the first time. Even Xu Shiqing couldn't help but raise her head and look at it blankly. The terrifying high-voltage electricity broke through the metal wall almost instantly, and a deep black hole was blasted open. What was even more terrifying was the constant flashing current in it. It is the most deadly to living things. Su Zan was shocked. His feeling was correct. If he hadn't used his Rui body just now and allowed this high-voltage electric ray to hit him, he would have been forced to penetrate his body. And the high-voltage current in it will make you paralyzed, or even severely injured on the spot. It is truly terrifying in terms of lethality, and it is indeed the most powerful trump card. But now, it's mine. Su Zan's eyes showed excitement. After watching the entire process of high-voltage current formation, there was no secret to him about this trick. In mind, the aura continued to spurt out, and the muscles in Su Zan's body also began to undergo inexplicable changes. With his ability to control his body, a dozen simple simulations couldn't be easier. You observed the principle of the Red King Python releasing high-voltage electric rays, and got inspiration. You controlled your own muscles to simulate, and combined it with your strength, you created the snake's secret technique. Thunder Breath. Thunder Breath. This is the name Su Zan gave to his newly created secret technique, which represents his beautiful expectations. Although it is essentially achieved by relying on biological characteristics and the power of Chinese martial arts, the thunder breath already has a somewhat extraordinary flavor. The thunderous breath I created is better than any other. My muscles are stronger, and the thunder and lightning released will be more powerful. Not only that, I have special strength, which acts as an accelerator. This allows my thunder breath to be condensed in a short time. I don't need to work as hard as this guy, and the cooling time doesn't need to be that long. When I evolve next time, I can guide the energy to adjust independently and transform some of the muscles in my body into a shape more suitable for thunder breath, so that I can fully exert it. The calendar district of thunder breath. Su Zan Wang Haojiao couldn't help laughing. This is not difficult for him. The previously suffocating poisonous poison was evolved and perfected over and over again. However, I can still use thunder breath now, but it's not as powerful when simulating muscles. For a while, Su Zan felt a little itchy. His pupils stared at the blue head that was almost extinct, and he grinned. It just so happens that dying under one's own unique skill is considered a beautiful thing. The next moment, in Xu Shiqing's horrified eyes. Suzan suddenly opened the python's mouth, and the blue arc began to condense. The situation was very similar to the blue head before. But the difference is, the arc condensation speed in Suzan's mouth is several times that of the blue head. Just a short breath, an explosive arc has taken shape. Zila, the terrifying electric beam was spit out from Suzan's mouth, instantly piercing the blue head in front of him, and even leaving a hole in the ground. Suzan smacked his lips in his heart and relaxed the tense muscles in his body, feeling a little dissatisfied. Sure enough, the simulated muscles are still not very easy to use. The power is at most the same as that of this guy just now. However, after I evolve and adjust my muscles, the power of this thunderous breath can at least increase several times. Suzan is looking forward to it. The next evolution is not far away. As long as he swallows the body full of rich vitality of the giant python in front of him, Suzan will definitely be able to achieve unprecedented growth. After all, the body of the Red King embodies the essence of the entire base. Resisting the desire to devour flesh and blood in his heart, Yinzan finally looked at Xu Shiqing. Before evolution, it's better to deal with this crazy woman completely first. Suzan needed to get some information about the base information. After that, Xu Shiqing was no longer able to do anything. The python tail swept across, and the human body had no ability to resist at all. Xu Shiqing was swept into the air and looked into Suzan's huge pupils. She was completely frightened. At this time, Xu Shiqing had completely fallen into a sluggish state. She was not frightened by the impending fate of death, but by the thunderous breath Suzan showed just now. At this moment, she finally understood. What was the purpose of the Black Emperor grabbing the Red King's remains and torturing him just now? It turned out to be, to study the secret of the high-voltage electric rays emitted by the blue head. What a scary thing. It is simply a fantasy that a giant python would want to study such scientific secrets. But the most important thing is, he actually succeeded. Seeing the terrifying thunderous breath ruthlessly penetrate the blue head, Xu Shiqing realized what kind of monster she had been facing. How is it possible? Impossible, impossible. She laughed like crazy and cried again. When such an unbelievable thing happened in front of her eyes, she really couldn't bear it. On the principle of high-voltage electric rays. No one knows it better than her, the creator, but you must know that she spent countless efforts to study this principle. Only she herself knows all this. Electric eels were cut open ruthlessly on the dissecting table. After repeated evolutionary adjustment tests, the muscles of the evolved snakes collapsed and died. The effort involved was not known to outsiders. In order to develop this technology, she worked hard. It took several years. But now, a giant python was observed for less than half an hour. It was successfully reproduced. Although there are already ready-made templates, the difficulty will be greatly reduced. But the horror involved is still self-evident. Such evil wisdom. It has never appeared in human history, but now it has appeared in a giant python. The impact on Xu Shiqing can be imagined. Xu Shiqing looked at Suzan with a blank look. You are a monster. You are a monster, she murmured to herself, her hair disheveled, her former beauty and coolness were gone, she looked like a crazy woman. Suzan's eyes were light. After actually capturing the base and forcing this woman into a desperate situation, he calmed down. Perhaps the previous series of battles had completely vented his long-standing anger, because Xuanping was calm. I said, you know nothing about me. Xu Shiqing smiled miserably. However, I really know nothing about you. Even if I know something about you, you will eventually break my understanding again and again. Quote. Even now, I don't know if what you showed is everything about you. Suzan grinned, noncommittal. Now, it's our turn to settle the score. You know what I want. Xu Shiqing nodded slowly. She knows. The giant python in front of him cannot be regarded as a beast at all. He is even less of a monster than a wise man. She knew that the giant python had been spying on the human world. Whether it's martial arts or other things, it all means that the giant python is eager for knowledge. Breaking into the base is not only for revenge on oneself, but also for resources and information. Hey Emperor, you are truly an unprecedented evil being. You are perhaps the only species of extraordinary intelligence among the giant pythons, no, among all animals. You are eager for knowledge and eager to understand everything about human beings. What a pity, why don't you believe me? If you were willing to be with me, I can definitely take you into a great existence that has never been seen before. I can give you everything you want. Suzan smiled sarcastically. Xu Shiqing, you are so wise, are you willing to lose your freedom and become someone else's experiment? With just one sentence, Xu Shiqing was silenced. Cooperating with you and evolving into a great being sounds nice, but in essence, am I not being taken advantage of by you? Besides, do you think I need your help to complete my evolution? Perhaps it was because she had not communicated with others for a long time, or perhaps because Xu Shiqing was to some extent one of the human beings who understood Suzan best, so it was difficult for Suzan to say more. Xu Shiqing was completely silent for a moment, then smiled bitterly and said, "Yeah, you don't need to. With your own talents and abilities, you can evolve better and faster." After a long time, she slowly raised her head. She stared at the giant python in front of her with a trace of obsession and regret in her eyes. "Hey Emperor, I know what you want. I can tell you where all the information about the base is, various research materials on evolutionary snakes, a lot of information about the human world, other biological bases in the Sakura Kingdom, information about the national martial arts of the Dragon Kingdom, and even everything about the end of law. I can give it to you. These are all you need. But, even if you get it, you won't have the chance to use it again." These last soft words immediately made Suzan's eyes freeze. Xu Shiqing cried and laughed. "Black Emperor, you are very powerful, you can even crush the Red King the first created. But, so what? Compared with the armed forces of the entire human world, you are still too weak. You cannot imagine the power of the most powerful thermal weapons of mankind. You can compete with tanks, but can you withstand the bombing of fighter jets, and can you withstand the long-range missiles? A blow. Humanity's technological means are too powerful for you to defeat, and the power of nuclear bombs is even more unimaginable for you. You have extremely high wisdom, but you also know clearly that this world is ruled by humans, and you are destined to be the other one." Xu Shiqing kept mumbling, and her whole person seemed extremely contradictory. She was a very contradictory and crazy person. "Hey Emperor, your existence has been known to others. In less than a day, Sakura country's fighter jets will arrive on this island. With your current level of evolution, you cannot stop them. Besides, what if you get away with it? In this world ruled by humans, unless you hide in a corner forever, you will definitely be dug up. They will be much crueler than me. With your wisdom, you can't help it. You can't stand loneliness, so you will one day fall into the hands of humans. Hey Emperor, I have foreseen your future. You will fight against the world on your own, and it will end miserably." In an instant, she burst into tears. It was as if I had seen Suzan's tragic ending. And Suzan completely understood what she meant. One day later, Sakura Kingdom's fighter jets will arrive. He was shocked. A sense of urgency emerged. But it was far less serious than Xu Shiqing thought. Time seemed short, but for Suzan, it was enough. He was able to complete an unprecedented evolution and transform again. By the time, his power will undergo a qualitative change, and even fighter jets will be unable to control him, and may even be killed by him. As for the tragic future described by Xu Shiqing, Suzan smiled and didn't take it to heart. The reason, or Xu Shiqing's understanding of him was seriously insufficient. If Suzan is just a giant python that occasionally gives birth to extraordinary intelligence and is extremely curious about the human world, then everything she predicts may indeed happen. But she never dreamed of it. Suzan's giant python body carries human souls from another world. Not to mention, he also has incredible understanding. So what if I fight against the world with the power of one person? As long as I keep evolving at a high speed, humans will never be able to follow my pace of growth. When one day I transform into a dragon and become a dragon, then it will not be me fighting against the world, but the world. Fear me. Incomparable pride emerged in Suzan's heart. Xu Shiqing's words did not scare him, but instead gave him endless fighting spirit. Transforming into a real dragon has always been his pursuit. No matter how big the difficulty is, he will overcome it. And after learning about the realm of Danjin and Tianren in Chinese martial arts, all this is no longer a fantasy, but something that can actually be done. Shu Shiqing stared blankly at the giant python in front of her. She could completely feel the high spirit of fighting. This was exactly what she didn't understand. She smiled bitterly and shook her head, finally letting go of all her obsessions. Her eyes gradually became distracted. It seemed as if he saw the place where he grew up in the Shu family compound. On the verge of death. Only then did she suddenly realize what she had done for her years of obsession. Hey Emperor, on the high platform behind me, there is everything you need. Crush me into pieces and let my flesh and blood melt into this base. I hope you fall, and I also hope you transcend. Shu Shiqing murmured softly. She trailed off. Su Zan's tail gradually tightened. The next moment, bang, there was a dull sound of flesh and blood exploding, and Shu Shiqing's flesh and blood turned into powder all over the sky, floating in the underground base. Su Zan didn't have much trouble in his heart. Shu Shiqing is undoubtedly a complex and contradictory person. Before he died, he told Su Zan everything, even the upcoming military operation of Sakura country without reservation. Perhaps, she wanted to make Su Zan deliberately suffer the despair and fear of the countdown to death, and take revenge in this way, or perhaps, she did not want to see such a wonderful creature fall into the hands of others. Maybe even Shu Shiqing herself couldn't tell her true thoughts. But, Su Zan didn't care either. He quickly calmed down. Seriously, he and Shu Shiqing just had a stance. If you want to arrest me, I will kill you. Since everyone is dead, there is naturally nothing more to say. In the silent underground space, he was the only one with a giant python hovering. Domineering and majestic, everything compliments him. Su Zan looked up to the sky and hissed. It's like declaring his final victory. In fact, only about 3 hours had passed from attacking this underground base to completely capturing it. Among these, not only did he take the time to evolve, his body grew to 25 meters. He also understood the 2 secret techniques of killing and concentration and thunder breathing, which can be said to be full of rewards. Certainly, the biggest gain is not yet here. Su Zan suppressed the excitement in his heart. He ejected from his python body and landed on the high platform in the center. The only remaining computer inside was still running. All of Shu Shiqing's actions just now were controlled by the computer in front of him. And all the information Su Zan wants is inside. Various research materials on evolutionary snakes. A lot of information about the human world. The rest of the biological bases in Sakura country. Information related to the martial arts of the Dragon Kingdom, including explanations of various key points from Mingjin to Danjin. Various kinds, possible. It won't be particularly detailed, but it will be comprehensive enough. After absorbing this information, Su Zan will no longer be blind to the world. He will also have a clearer understanding of his future evolutionary path. Possessing a heaven-defying understanding. What Su Zan needs most is a huge reserve. Operating the computer in front of him is not difficult for Su Zan, who has incredible savvy. After all, it is just a simple matter of reading data. The python tail clicked deftly. One item of data was immediately mobilized. First, it is about Shu Shiqing's research results and research information on various evolutionary snakes. Su Zan's eyes are like computers with the naked eye, seeing extremely fast. The first thing that catches your eye. The research on multi-headed snakes and multi-tailed snakes was really eye-opening to Su Zan. I have to say that Shu Shiqing is definitely a genius in the field of biology, with all kinds of fantastic ideas. I want to pinch it by hand. Su Zan admired the limb grafting technique. No wonder there are indeed 2 brushes that can create such a ferocious existence as the Red King. But, he didn't want to graft the bodies of other pythons onto his own. Although he could gain more power in a short time, he didn't want to become such a deformed existence. Su Zan's pursuit. From beginning to end, he is transformed into a real dragon. He then looked down, and his pupils suddenly lit up. In addition to multi-headed snakes, multi-tailed snakes and limb grafting technology, Shu Shiqing is more researching on various other special properties. After all, she wants to recreate the spirit of Yamata no Orochi. For example, I once tracked the mutant snake Chinli. For example, the previous armored python's thick scales were only inferior to Su Zan's, but there were many things that could be learned from it. There are also research results on snake scales that can withstand extreme heat and cold. Suzan looked at each item and was amazed. Even more excited. Because some of these results were of great help to him. At this moment, the light of inspiration kept flashing in his mind, and his heaven-defying understanding made him feel inspired every moment. Iron-clad snake scales that can resist thermal weapons, biotin capsules that can be tracked thousands of miles away, venom that can corrode alloys, muscle flake formation mechanisms that can condense high-voltage electricity. Each piece of information was absorbed by Suzan crazily. Several of them were secret techniques he had learned from observing the corresponding snake species before. At this time, the most complete principles and information were placed in front of Suzan, but observing it on his own was completely different. For a while, Suzan was overwhelmed by countless inspirations. His heart beat violently with excitement. Completely immersed in the world of inspiration, the process of constant enlightenment made him unable to stop. You have read the manufacturing principle of iron-armored snake scales, combined it with your secret art of flesh and blood scales, further improved it, and you created the secret art of snake scales and flesh and blood scales improved version. 1. You read the formation principle of tracking biotin capsules, combined it with your inanimate breath-gathering technique, and further improved it. You created the snake's secret technique of tracking biotin capsules. Body improved version, inanimate breath condensation technique improved version. You read the formation principle of corrosive poison, combined it with your suffocating poison secret technique, further improved it, and you created the snake secret technique suffocating poison improved version. 1. You read about the manufacturing principle of high-voltage electric rays formed by thin slices of muscle, combined it with your secret technique of thunder breath, and further improved it. You created the secret technique of thunder breath of snakes. News improved version close black lens bracket. Just a few moments. The light in Suzan's mind gathered into countless fruits. The secret techniques of snakes created one after another have been greatly improved at this time, becoming more powerful and improved versions. Suzan was very excited. When I evolve next time, I will adjust the muscles, body, etc. in my body according to these secret techniques. After that, these secret techniques will definitely exert several times the power compared to before. Terrifying power. Flesh and scale armor will be tougher. The suffocating poison will corrode everything. The thunderous breath is even more terrifying. The art of gathering inanimate breath will be even more difficult to detect. Just thinking of these, Yinzan couldn't help but want to start evolution. The harvest this time, it's really too big. Just the improvement of these snake secret arts is enough to earn back the tickets. He suppressed his inner desire to evolve and withdrew his gaze from the Red King's flesh and blood. Evolution will fall into slumber. It is better to fully absorb this information and data before talking about it. The research results just now are only part of it. Suzan continued to look down. The last item of Xu Shiqing's research results was immediately reflected in his pupils, and he couldn't help but feel a jump in his heart. It was indeed the finale. Research results on the enlargement and intelligence of pythons. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and support my channel.